Hello and welcome to another episode of the Uncommon Energy Podcast. On this week's episode, we'll be chatting about Pokemon Card 151, a special collector set, which is going to be coming out later on this year. A lot of those cards have now been revealed in Japanese. We'll be talking about some of the translations, what we're thinking about them moving forward. We'll be talking about some Pokemon card shortages over in Japan, what kind of impact that could have on the competitive market, what's causing those things. It really is going pretty crazy over there. If you think the Pokemon card shortages back in like 2020, early 2021 were bad in the US and in America, yeah, it's crazy in Japan right now. We'll, of course, have Guess That Flavor Text, everyone's favorite segment of the podcast. And then we'll be talking about the Sao Paulo and Portland regional championships, which are coming up this weekend. Azul is going to be competing in Portland. So maybe give us some insight on what's going through his mind as a competitor heading into this event. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone. My name is Chip Ritchie, and I'm joined here, as always, by my friend and co-host, Azul GG. What's up, Azul? How we doing? How was your week, my friend?
Pretty chill week. Nothing special happened. I'm doing a little bit more gaming recently, so I beat the newest, or not the newest, but the first God of War game in like since they like kind of rebooted it or whatever.
Yeah,
Um,
God of War on
and
like
then
PS4 or whatever.
yeah, and then I actually picked up a PS5 because I want to play the new Star Wars game, Jedi Survivor, and then I also want to play the new God of War as well. And apparently, yeah, the Star Wars game apparently is not doing very well on PC, so I didn't even like attempt to get it on Steam and like try it out. It was just like seems like that was ported over pretty poorly. Yeah, so I've been doing a little bit more gaming this week than I have in recent years, to be honest. I've been enjoying it. I've been the new game, like the good new games are like good for sure. So I've been enjoying that. That's been because I haven't played like a video game in a long time, like a AAA
Yeah.
released video game in a while. But the good ones seem to be pretty good. But then the bad ones, there's a lot of bad ones. I feel like though. So, but I've only been trying to play the good ones. So that's been fun. Besides that, back to regular streaming, making YouTube videos. Same old with me. But how about you, Chip? Anything exciting happen?
Yeah, I actually went and played Pokemon a couple times this past week, so that's pretty fun. I went and played in my locals on Thursday night, which was fun. I got to meet a bunch of local players who I had not met before. A few friends who I see every once in a while. Got to hang out, play some Pokemon. I think I got like third place in the local tournament. I lost the last round. I played just Mew VMAX, and then I went to a League Cup this weekend, and I just played Mew VMAX again at that tournament. I want to talk about something funny that happened in my locals because I in the last round I was 3-0 playing the only other kid who was 3-0, and he was playing Gudra, and I drew really bad the first couple of turns, which happens with Pokemon decks every once in a while, right? But I still had a chance to win because Roxanne plus Path just can win you games. So pretty much my win con was Roxanne, Path, hit the Gudra. My opponent doesn't draw anything. And then next turn, I knock out the Gudra. He's still stuck. And then I can just win the game in like 2 turns from there. Um, but what happened was off of my own Roxanne, I whiffed it out to Path. Like I whiffed anyway to like thin my hand down and draw cards. So I only had like a couple Pokemon in play because my um early game was like pretty bad, right? And then so I was like, okay, just hopefully my opponent, literally all they needed off the Roxanne was a Drapion, a Nest Ball, a Drapion, a Colress. Like so many of these things just get them there, right? So I just had to hit the Gudra and just cross my fingers. And my opponent draws for turn, looks at his hand, thinks for a minute, plays Colress, looks at the 5 Colress cards, thinks for a few minutes or like for a few solid seconds, looks at his hand, looks at the Colress cards, lost zones, a Gudra, and a Nest Ball. And so when he lost zone the Nest Ball, I was like, oh my gosh, this guy prized his Drapion. He only plays one and he prized it. I'm chilling. I'm in a great spot. I can still win this game. I can totally still win this game. And my opponent looks at his hand for another couple seconds and then plays another Nest Ball and goes and gets Drapion out of the deck. And I was like, oh my God. It was just like the worst slow roll of all time. He made me think I had a chance. And it just didn't happen. So took the third place, I think, after resistance and stuff in the local league. And then I got top four at my league cup, which was pretty cool. Had a fun time playing in a league cup for the first time in like 3 years. So good to see some local Carolina area players for the first time in a long time.
big was the I'm curious and like for because it seems like a lot of the league cups that I've seen people talking about recently have been pretty big, like
Yeah.
bigger than normal. How big was the like this one compared to the average, you feel like?
Yeah, it was like 44, which I think like for that store pre-pandemic, it was probably around the 30s pretty consistently. So a little
Mhm.
bigger than normal for sure.
Yeah.
So that was cool to see. There was a
It
couple
didn't cap at
stores
all, did
in
it?
the I don't think they capped. No, the store has a lot of space. Actually, since the so it's a couple hours away from where I live, so I hadn't been there since before the pandemic. And the shop has moved since the last time I was there from spot in the like strip mall that it's in to a different spot in the strip mall that is basically like 2 units wide. So it's a lot bigger. So they have a ton of space now. So they probably could have fit like, 60, 70 people in there pretty easily if they needed to. But yeah, it didn't quite get there. There was a couple stores. This is just kind of the theme of like North Carolina, uh, cups and challenges and stuff, it feels like. There was, like, a couple stores in the area that were within a couple hours that had challenges the same day, and so I feel like they probably would have gotten maybe another 15 or so people if it was, like, the challenges weren't the same day, but, I mean, I don't know. They're gonna be tournaments the same weekend, right? No, pretty much no matter what you do because there's so many stores in the area trying to run things, so you can't totally avoid the overlap, it's just kind of inevitable, but, yeah, is what it is. It was fun. And you talking about Jedi Survivor, by the way, as well, made me remember or like, brought to my mind, like I have really been wanting to play that game because I loved Fallen Order, the first respawn Star Wars game is such a good game, and I was excited for Fallen Order. I went to look at it on Steam the day it came out. The reviews are terrible because the
Yeah.
game just like doesn't work for most people on PC for some reason. Like, I don't know how it's so hard, man, but it feels like so often these games come out on PC that are like made for made for the consoles, and they just like don't work on PC for whatever reason. And then also, it's $70. Why are video games so expensive now? And
The
it's like so
inflation.
I know, and I want to play it, but I know that in like 6 months, like for Black Friday or whatever, it's gonna be 20 bucks for sure. So it's like, can I just hold off on playing it and wait for the story and just wait to get it for 20 bucks, Like I'll try to avoid story spoilers, anything like that. But I was excited for it. I'll definitely play it at some point. It maybe if they at least like can fix it on PC,
Yeah, what is
I'll
that?
still buy
I don't know
it.
how they it has to be that they're like they have a deadline and one of their last things on their list has to be to like make it playable
I
for
actually
other
saw this thread on Twitter from like a game dev, or it was like a former dev or something like that.
huh?
And I wonder if I can find it. I don't think I'll be able to find it right now. But he was basically the gist of his thread was like, um, it is that hard to like actually make sure it works because everyone out there has like a different system configuration, right? Everyone's got a different
Yeah.
processor working with different, I mean, I don't really know computer stuff all that well. I bought a pre-built PC. Like I don't really know all the ins and outs of that stuff, but everyone just has so many different moving pieces that it really can be, from what this guy was saying at least, it really can be that hard. But he was getting blown up in his quote retweets, so who knows?
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I could definitely see that for sure. I don't know how all that stuff works with all the like. There's so many configurations, like infinite configurations with like PC parts. So, I guess I could see that. But at the baseline of it, it doesn't seem like it should. But I guess if it's coded initially for a PlayStation, like everyone's PlayStation 5 is the exact same, right?
Right,
So
exactly, and that's what he
yeah,
was saying as well in his
that does kind of
post.
make sense to me overall. And then like if you're building it from the ground up for like a PC game, then it would be like coded differently to just be able to have that plug and play and have the parts be shifting around from like computer to computer. But it's definitely disappointing because I was excited to play it too. And I planned to probably play it on the PC, but I had been wanting to kind of play the God of War Ragnarok game anyway, so I ended up just getting the PlayStation. I was like, now I can play both of them and I'll be fine.
Bro, the
so
solution can't be for me to have to go out and buy a friggin' $500 PlayStation, like, that can't be the answer, Azul, I can't.
I don't know, but the dude, PlayStation's been killing it, bro. Like, I don't even know what's the point of even like. I haven't considered ever getting. I've considered getting a PlayStation a couple times over the years, but I haven't thought about ever getting an Xbox in like since I had the Xbox
Yeah.
One. Like, what's the point? Like, the only point was Halo, but now that just Infinite is like free on PC off the rip. So it's like, yeah, like what's even the point of getting an Xbox anymore these days? But PlayStation comes out with good games, so
Yeah.
um, yeah, definitely excited for that. But yeah, let's go ahead talk about what our first topic, which is going to be the Pokemon card 151 set over in Japan. We have no idea how we're gonna get this set, when we're gonna get this set. Although it does feel like with it the way the set is, the Pokemon 151 is the original 151 Pokemon in a set. I think we're probably gonna get it as this set, right? Like, how else would we get it?
Yeah, I think it would make sense that it's a collector set at some point along the way. Like, we usually get one collector set a year, right? Like we get celebrations or Champions Path or Shining Fates,
It's
whatever one
always
of
in
those type of
October, right?
things. It generally is, but like Shining Fates came out in January of 2021. I'm pretty sure
Ugh.
we got like two that year. I'm pretty sure we got,
Oh.
yeah, because we got Champions Path and then Shining Fates came out like less than like
That
three
was
months
that was, like,
afterwards, I
during
think.
COVID, right? So everything was kind of weird and kinda
Yeah,
messed up.
yeah. So that maybe had something to do with that. Let's see. Yeah, because we got celebrations in 2022, right? Or 2021, end of 2021, like into 2022. Then what was the one this past year? Pokemon Go, right? Oh yeah, we got Pokemon Go, and that
Yeah.
was like last summer. So
Oh, that was
maybe
before
this will
Worlds, it was
be,
August, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So maybe this will be like a summer special set, like
We could
Pokemon
get it
Go
in such
was.
we could get it in, like, July or even August, yeah, before
Yeah, because we're coming
I
off Crown Zenith, which was a special set as well.
because the our next set is coming out I believe it's coming out June 9th. That's what I saw in my chat, I think somewhere. I think I saw it somewhere on Poke Beach as well. Like, our next set, Paldea Evolved, is coming out June 9th. So I think that'd be a reasonable amount of time to release a non-main set if they release it in July or August. Um,
This set comes out in Japan on June 16th.
okay, so probably not.
Well, so this would
We
it
could
make
get it in
sense though that
August.
this comes out before Worlds, right? Because it
Uh,
would be kind of weird that there's this
we
whole
get
set of
nothing.
cards that is out in Japan for months, and then Worlds comes around in August, and they can't play with these cards that have been
Yeah,
out
but
for
that's happened.
months.
Yeah, but that's happened every time before, like, last Worlds. Like that. No, that was even at last Worlds. I think they were playing with newer cards than what we had available. That's literally every Worlds ever. They always have
Yeah,
to like reset and
they
come
have to
back to
go
our
back.
format.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Well, it's not even go back. It's like go back, but then also play with less cards than they had before as well.
yeah,
Um, or up to this point. But I don't know. Maybe we're on the same. I don't think we'll be. Yeah, well, there's no way we're on the same page for Worlds. I don't think we'll be quite on the same page. Maybe next year. Maybe next year we'll be on the same page. Who knows? You'd have to
yeah.
like up our release schedule a little bit. But yeah, maybe we get this in August. I think it could be possible, even if it comes out in June in Japan. It's possible we would get this in August. I don't know. If anyone in the comment section has more insight on this kind of stuff, definitely drop a comment. I'd be interested to know. If someone's got the details. I think Jake Gearhart was in my chat the other day when I was streaming and we were talking about it. I think Jake was talking about how it probably wouldn't be possible for this to be released before Worlds, or be legal for
Logistically,
Worlds.
yeah.
Yeah, maybe it'd release like the week of Worlds or something for America or something. But yeah, which would also seem reasonable as well, to be honest. But I don't know. But hopefully it does, because a little bit of a mix up is always nice.
Yeah, and it how big of a deal that is totally depends on how good or bad the cards are in the set. And this was the first initial reveal. Of course, this came out like the day that we posted the podcast last week. So
Yeah.
we didn't get to talk about it last week. So maybe a little bit of old news now. But initially, they just dropped this picture that has all the original 151 Pokemon on it. You can see which cards are going to be EX Pokemon. We see like an Arbok EX, Wigglytuff EX. I think that's the first ever ultra rare Arbok card. I think Wigglytuff had a GX, I'm pretty sure. There's a
Well, that's actually kind of a
Jinx
surprise to
EX
me.
in
I would have
here.
assumed Arbok not actually having a Arbok, I guess, did kind of fall off after like its initial release though. Like, it wasn't.
Yeah,
It's
I'm
because it's one of those stage
pretty.
ones that when I think about it, I feel like it would have had an ultra rare,
Yeah, maybe like an old EX or something you would think, but yeah, pretty sure. Yeah, it has
or
never
maybe it
had an
didn't
ultra rare
stay.
print. But yeah, then there's like a ultra rare, there's a Venusaur, Charizard, and Blastoise EX. I don't think anyone should be super surprised by that. One of the things I saw a lot of competitive players freaking out about was the fact that there's a Vileplume with an ability,
Look
which is
out!
always a little scary.
They're always good. Usually good. I think we've had some stinkers in the past. There's also there's some of the types have changed for some of the Pokemon. There's also dark Pokemon. There's metal Pokemon, which obviously like it's the original Pokemon, but they've switched up some of their attributes or whatever you want to call it. There's like a Water Jinx EX, which I don't think
Well,
anyone's
yeah,
excited
Jinx was
for.
always an ice type.
Well, yeah, but I'm just saying like, I guess the only one we don't know if it's gonna be an EX or not is Mewtwo, right? Because that's what that is after Mew, right?
No, Mewtwo's right here.
Oh, what's after Mew then? Is that just a blank
Nothing.
space?
Yeah, it's
Oh, because it to fill out the
yeah.
poster? Oh, I literally thought that was Mewtwo, and we just didn't know what type it was yet or what it was. So the Mewtwo's a non-EX. Okay. But
Yeah.
it has an ability? Looks like it's got an ability there.
No, no, it doesn't have an ability. It looks like it's got a
Oh,
2
that is an
colorless
attack.
attack. Yeah, it's like a 2 colorless attack and then
Oh,
a
that card's
psychic
gonna
psychic
suck.
colorless attack.
Man, I thought that blank yeah, I thought the blank card there, I, like, didn't do the math in my head. I was like, I thought that was the Mewtwo, and that's, like, the one thing they hadn't revealed yet was the Mewtwo.
So
But
there are a few cards over here on the side that you can't quite see because of the promo image. There's something covering them up, and I believe I wrote it down. What are the cards? It's a
Tangela,
Tangela,
Pinsir,
a Pinsir, and a Kabuto, which since this post came out, there are a few cards that we've gotten full scans of and translations of. So we'll talk about the Charizard, Venusaur, and Blastoise here in just a moment. But we know now what the Kabuto is. It's nothing special, obviously. Kabutop's also not super special, but we don't know what Pinsir looks like. We don't know what Tangela looks like. Could there be a Pinsir EX here potentially? I would be a fan of that. Pinsir was actually a Pokemon that I was always uh, a Pokemon I always really liked when I was a kid because it's like a rare bug type you could only find in the Savari zone.
I literally had to just, like, look up Pinsir and remind myself what Pin that's what I thought it
Bruh.
was. That's what I thought it was, but I was like, "Is that a different Pokemon?" There's so many now, bro. I feel like that's fair.
Also, what do
Um,
you think of this? There's an Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres, but only the Zapdos is an EX.
yeah. I mean, it's almost like a good thing, right? Because that almost feels like it's for balancing purposes around the competitive game and less around collecting, right?
Yeah,
Like,
I guess that's
that
fair.
is because it does feel off as far as, like, collectors would go, but for competitors, I mean, we can only look at that. I feel like for competitors, it doesn't really matter. For people who are more competitive, it's just like as long as there's new, cool, interesting cards constantly coming out, that's all that really matters. But that I feel like that's a sign that is kind of probably tailored towards the play of the game and less of the collector aspect. And this is like a collector set, I feel like, but it doesn't feel as collectory as some of the past collector sets have felt. This almost feels a little bit
Well,
more
we haven't seen
like
if there's any gold cards or
yeah,
alternate
that's what I'm saying. We haven't
arts.
seen those yet, so that's one of the reasons. Like, we haven't seen any of that. Like, it doesn't exist, and you got like, I don't know. So it feels a little bit less collectory than like previous collector sets. It feels like it's a little bit more toward geared the cards being useful. But yeah, you're right. We have not seen the alternate arts and the gold and
Dude,
the.
I promise you there's a full art and a secret rare Charizard. I promise you those
What if it's
cards
just
like
151 cards though? What if it's just those? That's it. It's a
well, it's
151
not though
card
because
set.
we know there's trainer cards coming out.
Oh yeah, never mind, never mind.
Get
Okay,
bodied.
yeah, there
Yeah,
is
we're
more.
screwed.
Yeah.
There's some other cool things here. I mean, obviously, we don't know what any of this stuff does, but we see there's like a Mr. Mime with an ability. Bench barrier returns Azul potentially. Mr. Mime has
Seems
had
a
bench
little
barrier
early.
twice.
I feel like they line it up usually for like each every time rotation hits bench barrier. Every time
Yeah,
rotation hits in Japan, they just give them a new bench barrier.
yeah. There's like
This
a
feels like how
basic
it lines up.
Snorlax with an ability. Articuno, Zapdos, and Moltres all are basics with abilities. Pretty
Let's
much anytime
go.
something just is a
I
basic
like
with an
abilities.
ability. Yeah, anytime
Yeah.
something's a basic with an ability, you like have a little ray of hope, like, oh, this is gonna do something cool.
Yeah, it's gonna be cool. Yeah, abilities in general, to be honest. But yeah, definitely basics because they're so much easier to utilize in like splash and decks to potentially use. Stage ones, I mean, you got B barrels, like stuff like B barrels, cool, but it's a little bit
Sure.
harder to take advantage of those kind of things. But yeah, that is true. Basics with abilities are always intriguing. Does the Weezing have an ability too?
Yeah, Weezing does have an ability,
Let's see.
and it's got
There's a
a
lot of abilities.
wait, hang on, it's got a 2 colorless attack, it looks like.
Oh, spread
Could it
Wheeze coming
could
back?
it be the return, Azul?
It could be.
For anyone who doesn't
Yeah.
know, there was a Weezing from Unbroken Bonds a few years ago that was pretty decent in competitive play, like, a lot of people played it. It was, like, probably the last good spread deck that we had was this deck, I think.
Yeah. It like spread decks have always been pretty mediocre. Even before that, I can't remember the best spread deck before Wheezing. Um,
Yeah, it
yeah,
might just
Wheezing was
be the best
definitely
spread deck.
is that the best spread deck of all time? It could be.
Yeah,
It was pure spread in most matchups, but you had a few closers in there like the Larvitar and the
yeah.
Frost Rotom and stuff like that. It was a really cool deck. Weezing was a really cool deck. For sure. And the Lele as well. Yeah, so Weezing was really, really cool.
So, yeah, there's plenty
Um,
of stuff to be excited about here from what we've seen.
It's like the
Also
most
some
excited I've been for a set in a while. To be honest, I'm more excited for this than like the main set because like
the
there's so many things
Paldea evolved.
yeah, there's so many things we don't know about it. Maybe that's why it's like the most I've ever dug into a set before. But yeah, let's take a look at the most relevant cards we've seen so far.
Yeah, so the most recent reveal showed a few trainer cards and then also the Venusaur, Charizard, and Blastoise. Kind of makes sense that these are the three that they'd show off first. They're kind of the most popular, the flagship, right? So we've got Venusaur EX. It's a stage 2 grass type, 340 hit points, a lot of HP. With the ability Soothing Bloom, once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you may heal 60 damage from one of your Pokemon. Potent Whip as the attack for grass colorless, 150 damage. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now poisoned and confused. Azul. I think they did Venusaur dirty here with this one.
Yeah, dude, grass Pokemon have been getting like the short end of the stick for a while. It feels like. What was the last good grass deck? Oh no, we talked about this on my stream the other. It was Rillaboom tag teams. I think was like the last good grass
Rowlet
deck.
Executor.
Yeah, someone else mentioned a different deck in there as well, but I was like, nah, that one wasn't actually that good. But yeah, I think it was like Rillaboom tag teams was like the last good grass deck.
Yeah,
They've just
that
been
was like
yeah,
super competitive.
it wasn't even that good either. It was like a tier 3 deck probably, like maybe tier 2. It was like solid, but yeah.
Hey,
Yeah.
listen, bro, we've got Wo Chien with the Fortress EX coming out soon. That's all we need.
Maybe that's the next good grass deck. But and also another type that hasn't been getting a lot of love recently is also the fire type, and we are getting that Charizard EX, 330 HP, stage 2. Got the Resolute Claws for 1 fire energy, 60 plus 100 damage if you have any damage counters on the Charizard. And then for fire, 330 damage, but then you have to discard 3 energy from this Pokemon. So 330 damage, you're 1 KO on pretty much everything, and you have
Yep.
330 HP, which means you're surviving pretty much everything. I don't know. That feels like a decent combo, but 4 fire energy seems like a lot.
It's a pretty steep cost, and I always talk about this whenever we have fire Pokemon get revealed. But fire actually does have pretty good support right now. Obviously, it's got Magma Basin. I always say this: it's one of the best stadiums that Pokemon has ever printed. Just the fire type Pokemon in the format are not that good right now. Fire Magma Basin does combo with this card, obviously, right? You put
Yep.
damage counters on the Pokemon with Magma Basin, so you're doing a bunch of damage for. I mean, 160 for 1 energy is pretty energy efficient. You're going to 2 hit KO
Yeah.
most things in the format. Um, and then there are ways to get energies onto this guy, right? You like attach return, and then you can get like the Armor Rouge from Sword and Shield base set to move fire energy
Mhm.
from your bench up to the active. There is also the Pokemon Go Charizard, which has an ability that doubles all your fire energy in play, makes it so each of your fire energy provides 2 fire energy. So you could use that second attack for just 2 fires. That does, of course, rely on setting up 2 stage 2 Pokemon, but at least they're from the same evolution line, right?
Yeah, you'd have that going for you. It definitely seems rough, but I think it is a little bit better than Venusaur. And like maybe just that power, right? High HP, high damage. It could be a the right mix for a potential success for the Charizard. Definitely
Yeah.
potentially, right? Like I feel like if the stats get high enough, it doesn't matter how awkward the energy cost sometimes is, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if Charizard quite makes it there. But I think the best of the three, let's take a look at next. The last one here, the Blastoise EX, 330 HP, solid shell ability. You take 30 less damage from attack, so effectively 360 HP. So actually the tankiest of the three, if you don't count Venusaur actually healing anything. And then for 2 water energy, you can discard up to 2 water energy from your hand, and you do 140 damage for each card discarded from your hand. So you can cap out, you do 280 damage for 2 water, but it does require you to have 2 more waters in your hand. Um, but those are some pretty good numbers, and I feel like the attack cost isn't too high, and 280 is still a pretty good number, I think, in the current meta.
Yeah, and one thing I wanted to mention as well, I mean, we were talking about these Pokemon on this page with that we don't know what they all do yet. There is a Starmie here. It's a stage 1 and it has an ability, and in the past there has been Starmie that has the Space Beacon ability.
Oh, yeah.
You ditch a card from your hand to get back 2 energy cards from your discard pile. So that's a reasonable combo here. Obviously, you are setting up a stage 2, so that's tough. Water with the next set is getting a decent bit of support. You're getting the Chien Pao EX, which is solid as an attacker and with a good ability. You're also getting the Baxcalibur, which has a deluge type ability, a rain dance type ability that could get a bunch of energy cards into play for you. I do foresee a potential issue with a deck like this, though, where even though you've got a lot of hit points, you're going to eventually get to the point in the game where, even if you get ahead on prizes, your opponent can just go Iono you to 1 or 2 cards, and then this attack does nothing if you don't discard any energy from your hand, right? So if they stick you with a hand of 1 or 2 cards and you don't have a way to see more things, you're going to be in a tough spot.
Yeah, definitely. But we'll have to see. Yeah, but that definitely seems like the most reasonable of the three. The one with the most potential, I think, is definitely Blastoise. A lot of HP, decent amount of damage. Weak to lightning's not that bad. So yeah, maybe Blastoise will be the one to kind of come out on top here. But yeah, like after like talking about this, like yeah, grass Pokemon and fire Pokemon, like they just haven't been good for a while. I guess fire's had a lot of the spotlight. I guess it's just grass Pokemon recently, to be honest.
Yeah.
Fire Pokemon are usually pretty good. Yeah, a
Fire
couple trainers
Pokemon's
as
got
well.
Fire
Oh,
Pokemon's
go
carried
ahead.
by one of the strongest Pokemon in the format right now, though, with Radiant Charizard, right? Like, it's just like that guy's
Yeah, it's
just
true.
solid. 250 damage on a basic 1 energy attack.
It's not a fire
Pretty
deck. It's
nuts.
just that's just a fire Pokemon. But that does show how broken
Sure.
the card is, I guess.
And then there's 3 trainer cards here we can talk about. Let's just get leftovers out of the way first. Probably the least interesting one. This is a reprint, originally released in the Diamond Pearl era, but it's gotten a buff because if the
Got
Pokemon this card
buffed.
is attached to is your active Pokemon at the end of your turn, you heal 20 damage from that Pokemon. The old one was heal 10
10.
damage.
Yeah.
So we got a
100%
buffed
buff.
leftovers, but this is just a nerfed citrus. Is it citrus berry that I'm thinking of? There was one I think from Sword and Shield that literally did this, but it healed 30.
Well, it's not nerf. You can use it. You can have it get happen multiple times though.
Oh,
Like,
sure.
I mean, I assume if we're healing our Pokemon, it's surviving the turn, right?
Yeah, but it's like this is a card that was never played, Citrus Berry, and it's like they're giving us a worse version of it. It's like no one's gonna play it, right?
Well, no, but Citrus Berry discards at the end of your turn.
Oh, this stays. Yeah, yeah. Okay, never.
Yeah,
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 never
yeah. That's
mind.
what I'm
Never
saying.
mind.
So you
Never
could
mind.
get
Never
like
mind.
you could heal 40, 60. Some people are talking about this on
Okay.
Goodra. Like this plus Crystal Cave in a deck.
Okay. Okay.
Hey, 4 Corviknight VMAX, 4 Crystal Cave, 4
Hey,
leftovers on
hey,
each.
Venusaur EX heal 60.
Nah, we're still only doing 150 damage. Well, I don't know. I don't know if if Venusaur can survive the hit, I guess maybe that's no. It's heal 80 with the ability plus the leftovers.
Okay, never mind. I'm sold.
Yeah,
Wait, and it also says if it's at the end of your turn as
yeah.
well.
It's
So
not
it's not
between
even
turns.
between turns. If this was
Oh no, then it'd
between
be way
turns,
better.
yeah, between turns
Yeah,
would probably be a little too good, right? Just a passive heal 40 every turn.
I don't think that would be too good. I think you could maybe make a deck
Uh,
though. You could maybe make that work. I don't think it would be too good.
I don't
Wouldn't be
know.
too good, but
Okay, sure. I
I
think it
mean,
would probably devolve into some degenerate high HP deck that nobody can deal with. Like I mean obviously it's not the type of card that's going to be played in your normal Pokemon deck, right? But like if there's a card that can heal 40 damage every turn, there's definitely going to be something somewhere along the way that like you just slap that thing on there, your Crystal Cave like you mentioned, you reduce damage with your Gudra and then the thing just never dies.
yeah, but I don't think that's a bad thing. We haven't had a deck like that in a while. I feel like I feel like Gudra is that deck, but it's not. It's not like a Stone Journer. Like that's like that's like a archetype of deck or a archetype variant of deck that we don't see often in the Pokemon TCG, where you can make one really tanky dude, and you just try and keep it alive the whole game.
Yeah.
Gudra, because Gudra's kind of like that, but you also have to like threaten a second Gudra most of the time, and then either they go pick off that Gudra, which is fine because then you still have your Gudra basically got another swing in. But it's not like it's not like a Stone Journer type deck where it's like you just got to keep it alive for the whole time. So I wouldn't mind that being good. I mean, it being broken would probably be a little bit annoying. You just have Stone Journey mirrors going on all day. That doesn't sound fun. But
And then
um,
we got 2 other trainer cards here. One of them an item card, Snatch Arm. Look at your opponent's hand, choose a Pokemon you find there, and put it at the bottom of your opponent's deck. And then Erica's Invitation. Your opponent reveals their hand, choose a basic Pokemon you find there, and put it on their bench. Then switch in that Pokemon to the active spot. So Snatch Arm doesn't seem great. I mean, being able to pull cards out of your opponent's hand is extremely powerful, but the fact that it's limited to a Pokemon specifically is really not super good because, I mean, there's a decent chance your opponent just doesn't have a Pokemon in their hand.
yeah, the only way I could see that being played is as like a few of in like a control deck, Roxanne, Snatch Arm, decide what you
Sure.
do from there. Um, or like if the format got super degenerately aggressive, and then you're like playing Force Snatch Arm because it's just a card you can play during your turn, and you're trying to just aggro disrupt your opponent with anything you can. Like your deck plays 4 Crushing Hammer, 4 Snatch Arm. Like it would be a very bad format if we played 4 Snatch Arm in every single deck. So probably cool control card, and that's what we kind of see with the Erica's Invitation as well, right? Like I'm sure Sander. We always bring up Sander when we read these kind of cards. I'm sure Sander read that and already has some ideas of how to cook that up, because not only is it like an effective like echoing horn, or we saw Sanders control deck that was just played at UIC played the Manaphy that looks at your opponent's hand and takes Pokemon out of it and puts it on their bench, but also pulling those Pokemon to the active while not using your attack for the turn, but it does use your supporter for the turn, so it's like a trade-off. You're not using your supporter for the turn, but you still get your attack for the turn, and you don't end your turn with the use of the card, and then it pulls it to the active spot. Like that seems like it could be pretty good in a control deck. Like right, there'll definitely be situations where that could come up.
Yeah, Sander did
So
even tweet after this Erica was announced. He tweeted like a few hours after it was announced. Once again, shout out to the card designers who somehow managed to sneak in at least one card every sets that's precisely tailored to my favorite play style. Not entirely sure how it always happens, but it is appreciated. So someone at Creatures making cards is looking out for Sander for sure.
yeah, they're a big fan of Sanders decks, and it's just like, well, give him a little bit every time. Just like you can't give him too much because then everyone's gonna be doing it. Just enough for Sander to keep cooking, uh, and chugging along. But yeah, I think that's all the 151 cards that are worth taking a look at and going over. I'm sure we'll talk about some more as they are. I don't know. Are they all
Yeah.
going to be revealed? I don't know if they're all going
Yeah.
to be revealed like eventually, but as more pop up that are worth mentioning, we'll definitely share them with you on the podcast. One thing
Yeah,
we did kind of.
there
Oh,
was
go
an
ahead.
Onyx, a Raichu, and then a Kabutops and Omastar. Like all those have been revealed, but they're not really anything special. So
Yeah. They did bring back fossils. That's cool. So they brought back the fossil's different now. I guess we could mention that. It's got 60 HP, still a item card, so you can't start with it as your basic, right? But you can
Mhm.
play it 60 HP Pokemon, and then it's got an ability now that says it takes 30 less damage from attacks, so it's tanky.
Yeah, it's
Uh,
kind of interesting too because it only evolves. This one
oh, I
only
just noticed
evolves
that.
into Kabuto. So
Oh, so
theoretically,
we
there's
don't
going to be one
know.
that only evolves into Omanite
So
as
might
well.
we might have a different ability then. There'll be different fossils then, I guess.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
it'll
because that's
probably be
old
similar to
dome
the old
fossil.
Dome Fossil, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, where I
that
bet
sounds cool.
Helix Fossil is going to say like you
Old
may heal 30
Helix.
damage from this Pokemon or
Yeah.
something like
Well,
that. It's
that's
probably going to, or if your
useless.
opponent attacks it, they take 10 damage.
Yeah. Okay. So the fossils are changing up. Fossil Pokemon also haven't been good for a while. So, and I don't think these are changing it at all.
No, yeah, not really
um,
worth chatting about.
we did mention a little bit with this. Like this is going to be the kind of like a collector set. And the next thing we're going to talk about is the card shortages in Japan. Another thing we'll talk about. We'll mention go through all this first, but then we're going to kind of talk a little bit about how we feel like the collector side of things has kind of impacted the potentially like the competitive side of things over the last couple of years. But yeah, in Japan, they can't get cards.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. This was made pretty evident with the release of Clay Burst and Snow Hazard. Hexter tweeted this picture out actually outside of a store the night before the set even drops. I mean, it's just like the streets crowded with people waiting to get in to a shop to have a chance to buy the
They
new
burst
set.
snow hazard,
Yeah.
right?
And I think that the main reason for this is pretty obviously because of the Iono SAR card, because people were anticipating it to be ridiculously expensive. Card shops, after the set came out, were buying the card, offering to buy the card. Like this is what card shops were buying it for 220,000 yen, which is approximately 1600 USD. Yeah, pretty wild. I think it has come down a little bit. I was looking online a little bit and I saw some people I think on like eBay selling them for like 1300 ish dollars, but yeah, I mean, yeah, absurdly expensive for a modern card. Um Not something that we see too often in the Pokemon TCG. And I think I have to imagine the English
Oh,
version of this card
it's like
is
four
going to
hundred
be
dollars on eBay right now. I'm like looking.
the SAR or the SR.
Oh, there is a difference. Hang on.
Yes.
Yeah, 1600.
Yep. Yep. There is a difference.
Yeah, 1500. Yeah, yeah, you're right. You're right. Which is so it's just so bizarre because it's like this is like really weird to me because obviously like the older stuff gaining value makes sense, but this newer stuff like off the rip, obviously it's gonna go down a lot, right? I probably, and it'll bounce back and as years go on, and it'll gain more value. But it's like the value of these cards is created by the people who want the cards, not by the company itself, right? But it's
Yeah.
almost like it's inflated. Pokemon, I feel like is so inflated. Um, there's just like a weird amount of hype around Pokemon for like no reason. I feel like I mean, obviously, like it blew up over the pandemic, but it's kind of like still going, and it just feels weird to be honest. Like I don't know.
Well, I mean, I think it makes sense, right? I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is all kind of like old topics, right? Back in the early days of the pandemic, but it was kind of a perfect storm of things where Pokemon came to the forefront of pop culture again due to it was like a lot of just it was a perfect storm of situations happening all at once, right? So the pandemic, everyone's locked inside, so people are looking for new hobbies, new things to do, right? Pokemon is something that has always been popular. Um, and then Logan Paul does his little thing where, he opens up a first edition box.
Yeah.
That puts a lot of eyes onto it. A lot of people get interested again. They start thinking about going to buy cards. Pokemon releases Champions Path, which has a secret rare shiny Charizard in it and a Rainbow Rare Charizard VMAX in it. So two really big chase cards in it of one of the most iconic Pokemon for people to chase after. And also, the U.S. government gave everyone $1,200 as a stimulus check. So I mean, it was like a perfect storm of things happening for people to just go out and spend money and buy these cards. And yeah, we're still experiencing some of that, I think, for sure. I mean, obviously, this is more about the Japanese market, which is its own kind of separate
Yeah.
thing. Um, but yeah, I mean, and it is so and the reason this card is so expensive is also another kind of perfect storm of situations, right? Because it's no real secret that the waifu cards, as many people refer to them, the female character cards are generally more expensive. Not going to comment on why that may or may not be, but it is what it is. So, I mean, that's the case with this card, a waifu card, and also a super good competitive card, going to be a staple meta card, going to be a four of in plenty of decks, I have to imagine. I mean, this is a
Definitely.
card that's gonna see tons and tons of play. So both of those things being true, I think have contributed to it driving up the price.
Yeah, it just kind of feels unfortunate because it is like it feels like a lot of Pokemon is more about the money and like forcing things to be worth more. Like even with all this stuff in Japan, there's like a massive just kind of shortage of product in general. Or what was that other tweet? You said you saw another tweet out there where they were banning adults from buying Pokemon cards. Was that it?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Let me find it again. Did I not link it
Um
here? I
Yeah,
must
so
have
there's
deleted
like
it.
it's just like Pokemon is so much more about money. And we saw that even with like other stuff too in Pokemon where it's like where they had like the packs of cards in the cereal boxes. And then you saw those pictures of people with like shopping carts full of cereal boxes to get the Pokemon packs out of the cereal boxes. Yeah, it was just kind of unfortunate. And I'm fine for stuff to be worth money and things to be rare and collectible, but like it feels so forced nowadays. It just kind of feels it's not natural. It's not like a natural the cards aren't like naturally becoming worth more and rare and all that stuff. It's kind of being like forced. It's like instead of new Charizard coming out and being like some people like it, some people don't, and then you kind of wait a couple years and then it becomes worth more money, and the people who had it, it's like any Charizard that comes out now is like automatically, and I feel like it wasn't that way for a while, or at
Yeah.
least not in the numbers that we're in now. And then yeah, any waifu card that drops nowadays is like instantly worth, or at least this one, $1,600. Like that's just absurd. Yeah, it feels like really forced and not very, not like not naturally like how it kind of did before. But maybe that is the way humans are. That this is now the new natural progression of Pokemon cards being worth as much money as they are.
So with all this happening with, the lines being ridiculous, people are having a hard time buying the new cards, having a hard time getting their hands on these sets. So shops have kind of tried to do their own thing to implement ways to get around it. We were talking, Azul mentioned, there's a shop in Japan. They tweeted out that they were banning anyone that is an adult from buying cards. We are selling packs for only customers under junior high school, and then they'll restock these packs every single day. So I mean, that's kind of wild to see.
Yeah,
Something that they're feeling like they're being resorting to having to do. And then all of this led to Pokemon having to just kind of release a statement about it, recognizing the situation. And I'm pretty sure this is also the second time that the Pokemon Company in Japan, not the Pokemon Company International that we deal with in America and the western part of the world, but the Pokemon Company, which just deals with Japan and other parts of Asia, I believe. Um, tweeting that, or they posted on their website. It's all in Japanese, but oh, hang on, we can
we can translate it.
translate. Let me get back into the right link. Sorry. Yeah, translate. There we go. They say thank you for the continued patronage of our products. Again, this is going to be Google Translate, so not perfect. But regarding the product shortage announced on April the 14th, we will inform you about future measures. We are preparing to reship the following products as soon as possible, saying that they're going to reprint more of these cards. And we're considering manufacturing to order the following products. Details will be announced around mid-May, which is just the Clay Burst pack. So not Snow Hazard, but just Clay Burst, because that's the set that everyone really wants, because that's the one that has the $1,600 Iono in it.
Yeah. That's kind of like an unfortunate, and like that's kind of like talking about like the collector side of things having like an unfortunate impact. Definitely less so here. Obviously it's more so in Japan, but like cards are just harder to get for everyone. Everything's a little bit more expensive because of like kind of the, like I said, like the forced, it's almost like forced market inflation of everything with Pokemon right now. Like things are just worth more. It almost feels like not because people want it, but it's because people want it to be worth more money, and it's less so to do with the card. People actually wanting the card. I know there's some people who are out there, who are like truly just like trying to collect, and who knows, maybe they'll sell some of their cards in the future, so they're not going to hold on to them forever. But like there are people who do want, who are huge Charizard fans and really just want the Charizard EX coming out of the 151. But then I feel like there's a lot of people who are just trying to get as many Charizards as they possibly can out of 151 to just try and resell them and push the price up as much as they possibly can. And that's like become a big part of the Pokemon trading
Yeah.
card game, which means Pokemon company is making a lot more money, which means TPCI is probably making a lot more money, which means they could have probably put a little bit more money into PTCG Live or more prize support for
I knew it was
Pokemon
going to come
events,
back around
but
some way.
but apparently I don't know. I don't know what they're doing with all that money, but it'd be cool to see some of it put back into the actual game
Well, I mean,
maybe
I
one
think
day.
that has to do with like, I mean,
But they're
they got
selling
to
more
know
cards.
they know they know their consumer base, right? Like,
Yeah.
I bet I've said
It
this
doesn't mean they
before in the
couldn't.
past. I don't know if I've said it on the podcast or not, but like I would bet that like 1% of people who even buy Pokemon cards even know how to play the game. I mean, it's like a tiny portion of people who buy Pokemon cards even know that a competitive game exists, right? Um, I mean, it happens all the time whenever like I'm hanging out with friends that are like meeting people that don't like aren't in the gaming and Pokemon world, just normal, actual humans, actual NPCs out there in the world. When I'm meeting people and like, the conversation always comes up with, oh, what do you do? And I talk about casting and Pokemon and stuff. They're like, I just had no idea something like that even existed. And these people all definitely know that Pokemon cards exist, right? But like people don't know like it's just such a small percentage of the population that even cares about competitive and playing the game. So I mean, Pokemon probably knows that, or they should know that. And so, I mean, I'm not going to say like they don't care about the competitive scene because I think there's a lot of people who really heavily care about competitive Pokemon who work at the Pokemon company. But I mean, it kind of makes sense that you would devote your resources to where you're making the most money, right? As just a business.
Chip, the TPCI apologist strikes
No,
again.
bro, I'm trying to be
I mean,
subjective or
obviously, yeah,
objective,
obviously,
whichever one
yes.
is unbiased.
That is reasonable. Like that is reasonable. That
Yeah,
is, but it doesn't mean we still can't ask for a little bit more from Big Peak's pockets. But yeah, I mean, yeah, I feel like it definitely, definitely the whole collector side of things blowing up as big as it has, and like I said, less so even just like kind of collector, but more so people just trying to make cards worth as much as they possibly can. Because there's all those people who like, the people who like probably like, just try and buy shoes and resell them. 100% over the pandemic, tons of those kind of people got into Pokemon cards
oh,
and like
yeah,
are now still here buying the new sets every time and just like reselling it or flipping it and stuff like that. So yeah, those people who are like always trying to make as much money off of people's want for something. There's a lot more of those in the Pokemon TCG now after the
for sure.
pandemic. But yeah, I think that covers most of that. Unless you had anything else you want to talk about.
I don't think so. And before we move on to guess that flavor text, we do need to take a moment to thank our sponsor of the podcast, Dragon Shield. Huge thanks, as always, to Dragon Shield for being a sponsor of the Uncommon Energy podcast. Dragon Shield makes some of the best card gaming and tabletop gaming products and accessories on the market, including sleeves, binders, deck boxes, and much, much more. This week, like I mentioned, I went to um, a league, my local Pokemon league. I also went to a League Cup, and at those tournaments, I used the Lagoon Dual Matte sleeves, which I'm a big fan of. I love the color, and They actually, I've generally preferred the matte sleeves over the dual mats over the last couple years or so. But I really like the way these felt. They shuffled super nice. I didn't feel like the corners caught or anything like that, which is something that has happened for me with dual mats in the past. These felt like absolutely amazing. Shuffled super nicely. Felt great to fidget with in my hand while my opponent is playing their turn. The Pokemon player shuffle. But yeah, big fan of the color for sure.
I gotta pick out. I think I used the lagoons actually at a regional not too long ago. But I gotta pick out what I'm gonna be using for Portland. I'm probably using the Blood Reds again for Portland because I got quite a few of those left. So I'm probably rocking the Blood Reds this next week, or because it's coming up weekend at Portland. But yeah, huge shout out to Dragon Shield as always.
Yeah, Azul using the blood red because he smells the blood in the water coming to strike, coming to get his next regionals win. Shout out once again and thank you to Dragon Shield for being a sponsor. You can find them on their website, dragonshield.com/webshop and then /US or EU, depending on when you're located, to pick up the sleeves or any of their other products. You can also find many of those products at your local card shops, your local game stores, and many big box retailers.
All right, so let's move on to guess that flavor text. This week, it's my turn to pick a flavor text for Chip, and then have Chip try and guess which Pokemon that flavor text on that card belongs to. Chip is up 4 points right now because Chip did get a 4 pointer, not last week, but the week before. And then
And how
if
many
Chip
points did you get
gets
last week?
0, and if Chip gets this one right this week, it could be another 4 points unless Chip uses one of the lifelines of what set the card is from, what stage the card is, or read an attack name from the card. And then if you use all the lifelines or any of the lifelines, you get -1 point. All the lifelines will be -3 points. Chip, are you ready for your flavor text this week?
I'm so ready, and I'm so ready to get so far ahead that you're never gonna catch up.
Okay. A discovery was made in the desert where blank fly. The ruins of what may have been an ancient city were found beneath the sands.
Okay. So instantly when you said this, my thought went to um Flygon for some reason. It's like the sand Pokemon. I think you find Trapinch in like the or Vibrava maybe. You find them in like the deserty, the sandstormy region of the Pokemon Emerald and Ruby and Sapphire map. There's also the fossil Pokemon from that region. Kind of just the first things that came to my mind. Let me have you read it one more time, Azul.
A discovery was made in the desert where blank fly. The ruins of what may have been an ancient city were found beneath the sands.
I mean, so it could also be like a fossil Pokemon. It could be like Aerodactyl, right? But it says a discovery was made where blank fly. So that doesn't sound like a fossil Pokemon because where it would say like where blank flew, right? Or where their fossils were found. Um,
Do fossil
so yeah,
Pokemon work like in the lore of the universe?
they're
Are they fossils or are
prehistoric
they Pokemon?
Pokemon. They're
Yeah, but
prehistoric
do they
Pokemon.
exist?
Bro, how has this guy never played an old Pokemon game? It just doesn't make you find the fossils, Azul, as you play through the game,
No,
and
but like,
you take them to a
oh
research
yeah,
lab,
I did
and they
that. Yeah.
revive the Pokemon back to life. So you get
Uh,
this prehistoric. It's literally Jurassic Park, but
do
in
they
your
allow that?
Pokemon
Like,
game.
isn't that like technically like cloning?
Bro, who knows what the
Like
ethics of
that
the
doesn't.
Pokemon
I don't. Yeah. What is
the
the
ethics of
ethic?
the
What is?
Pokemon world have to differ from that of our
There
own,
needs to be a
Azul.
debate. We need an ethics debate on reviving fossil Pokemon in the Pokemon universe. Like, what is
Okay.
it? Yeah.
You're
How do we
trying to
feel about
distract
that?
me here, and it's
All right, go
not
ahead.
gonna work, and you're trying to distract me because I think I was on to something initially. Vibrava or Flygon is kind of what I'm leaning towards now because they fly in, like, sandstormy areas. Let me, use some lifelines here. I don't think it's gonna be a 4-point spike, but that is where I'm kinda leaning right now. Let me go with what stage the card is.
It's a basic.
Okay, so it is not Vibrava or Flygon. Okay, so
Can Trapinch
that's
fly? I was like, I don't know. I don't
Trapinch.
think so.
No, Trapinch is just a little freaking dirt gremlin or something.
Yeah, it's not like a bug, but it's like
Yeah.
a. It kind of looks like a bug.
He's kind of a bug. Flygon not being a bug type is something. Um,
It's kind of cool for me though, for someone who doesn't like play the video games, is to sometimes like go look up a full image of the Pokemon, and like sometimes in the cards you can't truly see what a Pokemon fully looks like until you look at like an image
oh yeah,
or
it
like
looks
Google an
very
image of it.
different looking at like the card artwork versus a 3D
Yeah,
sprite for sure.
yeah. So I went to go look up Trapinch. I was like, what is that? You just see his head in the card artworks. It's like But
He's
yeah,
got little feet. He's got little legs, bro.
yeah. Trapinch kind of looks
Um,
like a bug.
okay, you're distracting me. Calm
No,
down.
go ahead. I'm ready for you to
Well,
guess. Go
now
ahead.
I'm sure you are. Now I'm thinking of like Aerodactyl again. So I'm gonna need to use some more lifelines because I need some help. But let's go with what set the card is from.
Fusion Strike.
Bro, you have been loving Fusion Strike recently. What the heck? That's where the Indeedee was from. Let me have you read an attack
Wait,
name.
was it
Yes.
attack name?
Yep.
Reflect Energy.
Reflect energy. Is it Natu?
Is that your guess?
Natu? That's my guess. Yes.
Oh no.
Okay.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what attack name to go with on this one. The other attack name was Joust. But I feel like that one
Hmm.
could be a dead giveaway because Joust is not on many Pokemon, but it is a Sigilyph on Fusion
Oh,
Strike. Apparently
yeah.
they fly. Apparently they joust. That's not the
I
right one.
just
That one
don't
has
think of
warning.
Sigilyph as a Pokemon that flies, but it
I just
is
don't think
a
of Sigilyph as a
flying
Pokemon.
type. Yeah. Definitely. Sigilyph's kind of a forgettable Pokemon, to be honest.
Yeah, when you think of it, it kind of is unique, but it doesn't stand out. Like you're not gonna think of a Sigilyph. Like
Yeah. Dang. That was a good one. That was a good one. And even in the card artwork here, you can see like the ruins of an ancient city. But yeah, that
yeah,
is a that totally makes sense now that I know what it is. No
doesn't
points for
make
me
sense to
this week.
me.
Bro, Azul just doesn't even like Pokemon.
I just don't know too much Pokemon lore. My Pokemon lore is limited. Um all right, but yeah, we remain chip ahead 4. Let us know how you did this week. How many points did you get on the Sigilyph? Hope to get the full 4 or not. And we'll be moving on to talk about Portland and Sao Paulo regionals this weekend. I believe this is the next major events in this format, right? I don't think anything else has happened since UIC. Am I wrong? Am I right?
I kind of think I think there was like a
I don't think so.
Southeast Asia tournament. I feel like I saw something on Twitter.
Oh, me too. Yeah, I did. It was recent. It was a Lugia mirror. It's on PokeStats.
Okay.
I don't know what level of tournament. It was a bigger tournament for sure. Um
Yeah, I'm gonna see if I can find it on PokeStats. Major event data 2023 season Malaysia regionals.
yeah.
Malaysia Regional League, 177 players, and it was won by Lugia V-Star, like you mentioned. So
Yeah,
yeah, we do have
Lugia.
some other results to look at, which is kind of interesting. So it's two Lugias in the finals, and I don't know if you agree as well, but I've almost felt like Lugia has been on kind of a downswing for me, as far as
Yeah.
like people talking about it, people wanting to play it.
It's not a very enjoyable deck to play for sure. Yeah, the deck is definitely not very enjoyable. And yeah, it's just not a very enjoyable deck. I don't think it's as good as I initially thought it was, or kind of anyone thought it was as well. It feels like there's like a general consensus on that. It's like not that good, not very fun to play. Um, but I think it's still a decent deck for sure. It's not bad. It's just like not as good. And yeah, I think the biggest thing is it's just not very fun to play at all. Um, but yeah, I mean, winning isn't a huge surprise. I guess 2 in the mirror is a little bit of a surprise. It was a best of 1 tournament, I believe. Um, 177 players, so a little bit less. I feel like to always take away from these style of tournaments. Like the best of 1, I feel like adds a little bit more variance to them. I don't know. Maybe that leans into like Lugia being a better play as well. I don't know. I assume it was best 2 out of 3 top 16 though. Is it? What does it say there?
Yeah, it says best of 3 top 16 cut.
Okay, yeah. So
Yeah, I recognize some of these names as well from some of these players. I mean, I think there's some like worlds qualifiers in here. I recognize like Colin Tang's name, Aaron Minjute. I feel like I've seen these names before.
yeah, yeah. So I mean, Lugia doing well. Is there anything else interesting in that top cut? There's a couple Lost Box, a couple Tinas.
Yeah, a couple Gardevoir as well. Some Arceus toolboxy decks, right? Like you were saying. So another Lugia kind of a little farther down. So yeah, there's a definitely a mix of things going on here. Um, but I feel like, I mean, this is something to at least think about and make note of. But I feel like most people are going to be looking at EUIC results, probably just because a lot of people don't even like this is not on a lot of people's radar. The fact that this tournament even happened.
Yeah,
So most people are going to be looking at the UIC, and people are also probably going to be looking at the play limitless results? And I guess that would be a good question as well. Like, where do you kind of weight the results from these online tournaments that have been happening? A lot of these things have a decent amount of people in them, right? Oh, this was a VG event that I clicked on initially, but I mean, some of these things have 100-ish people in them. I mean, Lugia did win this one most recently. Where do you weight, how you consider the meta for online events versus the meta for EUIC, which is maybe a little bit, I don't know. Yeah. Where does it kind of stand for you?
Yeah, I mean, the online events are going to be like a little bit of a natural evolution from EUIC, so I definitely put a little bit of weight into them. And I think like one of the things, like I mentioned, like especially when like if you tie, like if you have an idea or a feeling about a deck, and then it's kind of reflected in online tournaments, that kind of like helps you out with that. That's something we see with, like I said, like Lugia. I don't. It doesn't feel great to me. And Lugia's been going like pretty downhill in online tournaments. It's no longer in like the top 3 most played. It's like down at 5th, 6th, usually like 5 to 7%, is its current meta share in these online tournaments. Everything else is about the same though. Guardy, Mew, Lost Zone Box, Gudra, all up ahead of it. Lugia gets to hang out with Lost Zone Tina, unfortunately. For I feel bad for Lugia because of that, but yeah, definitely feel like it's a little bit of a natural evolution. We saw Gardevoir get a lot more popular after EUIC as well. Toward, of course, getting second place with that, kind of proving it. And even though Shemansky won, I feel like the Arceus toolbox type decks gained a little bit of steam for a little bit. But even if you asked Alex if Alex's deck was probably good after EUIC, Alex would probably even say no. And yeah, I don't think that deck is very good. Like moving past it, so it not seeing much player success in online tournaments isn't like a huge surprise. And yeah, Lost Box. I guess Mew gained a little bit of steam as well after UIC. It's just kind of been like a natural progression post UIC, kind of like a lot of things that you'd kind of expect. Kind of decks proving themselves as being good, and some other decks probably proving that they're not as good as some people thought they were as well,
I mean,
and kind of falling off in popularity.
it feels to me we're in a meta, and maybe one of the first in a long time, where there does not feel like there is a clear BDIF. There's not
Yeah,
like a without a doubt, this is the best deck in the format that everyone's trying to beat.
I feel like we had that with Lost Origin a little bit. Although I think it probably was Palkia, and we just had
Sure.
it. The meta needed to evolve a little bit more for like, because it was the most popular deck at the last regional, I believe, in that format. Palkia was. But yeah, I think we're at the point where like Palkia was probably the best deck overall in the format. Um, yeah, I think in this format as well. Yeah, I don't think there's a clear BJF. I mean, like my tier 1 is probably Guardy and Turbo Lost Box, but then besides that, everything else, a lot of the other decks are really close to them in power level. And there is a lot of decks to like place after that for sure.
So you talked a little bit about Alex Shemansky's EUIC winning deck, and usually, people will take the deck that won at the last tournament, and that is going to be the deck that's going to be most popular moving forward for at least like the first tournament, or it'll be at least uptick in meta share. And I do expect there to be more Arceus variants of decks at Portland than there was at EUIC as far as like meta share percentage goes, but Arceus Duraludon Vulpix specifically with the double Drapion, Alex focused style of deck. Do you think there's a place for it in the metagame moving into Portland?
Probably not. No, it doesn't seem like there's a great space for it right now. It doesn't seem very good. Um, Most Guardies are like playing like like I've seen Guardies like playing the Mimikyu EX, or just understanding the matchup better. So that's going to be a tough matchup. That's become a more popular matchup as well. Or even just like having 2 gust effects in the deck makes the matchup a lot harder, because now you
Yeah.
can chase everything around the Vulpix a lot faster, and then just end up with that Ralts that then you end up with the Ralts in play that takes away that like limits your attack from there. So yeah, I would say I don't think it seems very good right now. Maybe some kind of arc pile deck in general will be okay. But I don't think like exactly Arctura or like what Shemansky had going on would be like 100% what you would have to play. There could be a couple different ways to rock it right now, but none of them seem great. I would say for sure.
Yeah, I wonder how the Gudra matchup is for Arc Pile. So I think I looked at Alex's results and I think he went like 1-1-1 against it. Or something like that. I mean, Vulpix hits through the effects, Duraludon hits through effects, right? Um, so I feel like
I
it's
have to imagine
probably
it's
decent,
favored.
right?
Yeah,
For
I'd
for
imagine
Arc
it's favored.
okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so with that though, like that to me was probably the one deck that your deck didn't have like a clear strategy against. He was trying to counter the Lugias, the Gardevoirs, and the Muse, right? So Gudra was the deck that kind of popped up that he didn't have like a clear strategy against, but it feels like he just kind of naturally had a good matchup there, right?
Yeah, because you force him into like the Gudra V and attacking with that, and then to like deal with your Vulpix, and you just KO them, one
Right.
KO them with Dura.
Well,
So
they
like
do
you just
play
set up a
four
Dura and a
rogue in the
Vulpix.
Gudra deck, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, maybe you can be oppressive enough with that, but also you're the less consistent deck, right? Arc is going to be hitting first as well.
Sure, sure, sure.
So you have that going for you as well. You can always like bench another Arc down, or even your Guardy to push up around the ropes in the early game situation. So, yeah.
I think probably one of the biggest detractors for Alex's deck going into Portland is that Lugia is probably going to be less popular. Even if it doesn't like I don't think Lugia is going to fall off ever, right? Like it's not going to go away completely. It's still just really powerful, but I don't think it's going to be as popular as what it is in EUIC. And I looked at his Poke Stats live stuff. I'll see if I can pull it up. I'm pretty sure he played for Lugia in Europe, which is just 4 free wins because I imagine none of them played outs to Duraludon, and he just won the game.
Yeah, I'm sure some people had out a decent amount of people actually had outs to the route on though. There's a decent amount of Dura out there in the Lugias. It is possible that
He
oh no,
did
yeah,
beat
there's
Trevor,
one,
who
yeah.
got top 8, yeah.
Yeah, and that kind of comes down to who can kind of chase first, right? Because if you can chase their Duraludon with your Duraludon, you're winning. But if they chase your Duraludon with their Duraludon first, and I feel like the Arc deck is just better at that, right? You have Starbirth, you're going to be able to get the pieces to make that chase happen sooner. So I feel like you do favor the Arctur in that situation for sure. But like, yeah, it definitely like there is like the Lugia deck will have enough. But yeah, I think that'll definitely hurt the deck a little bit. There'll be less Lugia. And less more of the Lugias will probably have that Dur or the single strike Urshifu, right? Like that's kind of been the trend for Lugia. So they're gonna have the answers for your Duraludon. Most of them will have it more consistently, so that also hurts the deck as well.
So it seemed like coming out of EUIC, you mentioned how Gardevoir got a lot more popular in the coming days after EUIC on the online tournaments, in large part because it was the new fun deck that everyone wanted to try out, but Tord had the proven like good list for people to go based off of. Should people still be referencing that list when they're building for Portland, or is there reason to make changes from Tord's list? Um, what do you think about the V Union version? That's kind of like a little bit of a different deck almost, it feels like. Yeah, I guess just different win cons at the end of the game. Is V Union worth playing maybe?
I'm not a huge fan of the V Union because it just like you just like that much more clunky, right? Like it just adds that much more clunk for all your other matchups. It is decent. It is good against Lost Box for sure. Specifically, very good against Sablezard. But then your other all your other matchups suffer because of it, right? Like I think one of the big strengths of Tord's build was the consistency factor, right? Which is something that Tord is known for.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so the consistency factor I think was just like a big deal. Now the meta is gonna be a little bit more stabilized, so I think you can start to cut into the consistency of the Guardy deck a little bit for some powerful tech cards. But yeah, consistency is always gonna be good in every single matchup. Whereas like the tech card, the Mewtwo V Union, 4 dead cards until you literally set it up. And in some matchups, it's the same thing as just attacking with like another Zation V, or just attacking sometimes with your Guardy, right? So it doesn't even matter that you set up your Mewtwo V Union to like close out a game. You could have just used another Zation V instead. So and then the list does change a little bit. Like a lot of the lists that I've seen for the MTV but always look pretty greedy, like in terms of like 4 Ultra Ball counts and stuff like that. So you're cutting into like just like your research counts and stuff like that. You're playing less research. You have less like just good raw one of draw supporter cards that you can just have, and all of a sudden you're drawing 7 new cards. So I think the best way to play it is still the way that kind of Toward showcased. Your Lost Box matchup is unfavorable, but the other ones sacrifice matchup spreads in every other matchup. So I
Yeah.
feel like it's not worth the trade off. Just hope to not hit too many Lost Box, and then the ones you beat just get turned to Rare Candy Guardian, I guess.
Yeah, so I think that those are that's one of the 2 big questions for Guardy players going into Portland is it okay? Like, do I really just take a bad lost box matchups? And it sounds like you think that the answer might just be yes. And especially after like the Mirage Gate lost box builds kind of didn't do the best at EUIC, and we only saw Pedro Torres in top 8 with his Sablezard version of the deck. Maybe it's okay for you to take a rough matchup there. You can still, I mean, obviously, like if it's a bad matchup, if it's 70-30, you can still win 30% of the time, right? Like you can still find ways to win sometimes. But so that I think that's one of the big questions. Is it okay to take the bad lost box matchup? And the other one is it worth worrying about Vulpix, right? Because towards list it had answers, right? But it doesn't always work out the best. You mentioned people playing the Mimikyu EX. I've seen people playing Escape Rope. I've
Yeah.
been trying to play an Escape Rope plus a Serena in my Guardian when I've been playing, similar to what Tord had. Cutting a couple cards for those things. What do you think about if it's worth playing an answer for Vulpix?
I mean, I think the Serena is naturally already like a pretty good answer because then you just follow up, like you just KO everything around the Vulpix, and then you just use the Ralt, and they can't attack, and
Yeah.
then they have to bench something, switch out, switch back in, and then that's your target for your last couple prize cards. So I don't think there's a great answer. Like I think the deck just the Guardy like very needs very little, and some people have gone as far as like cutting like if you're playing the Tuesday V, you can cut one of them for a Mimikyu EX, and then that just KOs. Uh, the card right there. Or like some people have been playing like Pat to the Peak as like an answer for like mirror match. So you go Roxanne Path. So that's also an answer to um
The Vulpix.
the Vulpix. So you can like Roxanne Path and mirror match, and then you also just have Path to shut off Zacian's ability or remove it basically from play, which means Zacian can one hit KO the Vulpix now. So it's like yeah, I feel like it's just the deck's just not good right now. Alex's deck. And like I even said, like I think if you asked Alex, Alex would also probably tell you, yeah, the deck's not good anymore. I think it's had its time, but it could come back around, right? As like you
This
get to
is
a
how
point.
those anti-meta decks work, right?
Yeah, you just need it to like everyone to stop caring about it and not too many people playing the little things that matter. Or come up with something a little bit different, but maybe still cares about some of the current situations, and then like that changes around, and then you can get dubs with the deck once again.
And then is there any merit to other versions of Gardevoir? People were trying out Klefki things for a while. The Hatterini Klefki thing was something that was making its rounds as far as what people were talking about. Is anything that like that worth people considering?
If you're doing the clef key, I think you have to do it with Hatterini because if you just have two clef key in play around escape rope, your opponent will eventually draw the stuff they need to do something, and you're not really doing anything. And then once they do something, you just have two clef keys in play that are like easy prize cards. So I don't even know if like you win the prize trade even once you like set up guardians around your clef keys. So you need like
Bless
you
you.
need the Hatterene V
The
to actually
Hatterene.
like
Sorry, I said that one wrong.
Hatterene V to actually like draw prize cards while you're stalling with clef key to actually put some kind of pressure on. I feel like, but even that kind of build, once again, that's like four. You're probably playing like 2 to 3 clef key, probably three plus the Hatterene. You're basically in the Mewtwo V Union situation again, where you have all these cards for one matchup, and then all your other matchups are going to suffer because of that.
Hey,
Pretty big. So
consistency is king in the Pokemon TCG.
sometimes, yeah. Um, And speaking of consistency, or what has been maybe one of the most consistent decks over the past few years, but it has been feeling pretty clunky. The lack of quick ball, I feel that big time. But yeah, Mew VMAX did get third place. Pablo Meza did, and it seems like everyone's pretty much adopted this style of build like pretty quickly afterwards. And I think it's for good reasons. I think it's a very good, clean list. There are some things that I think um, probably should get changed. Like I haven't been a big fan of the fan of waves, and then I think the path count of 4 and vacuum count of 4 is like a little high. It feels a little clunky. But the rest of it besides that, super clean. And Mew's been like it definitely wasn't. I didn't like me and my group didn't really respect Mew at UIC at all. And I still don't think the deck is great. Like it's not like a tier one. This is maybe the weakest Mew has ever been. I think it's definitely possible. But it's still in there, still kicking. Has a rough time if there's too many Drapions around, but there's not too much of that right now. So yeah, Mew's still definitely a top dog.
Yeah, so I think the count of 4 lost vacuum is pretty good, and one of the reasons for it is it's one of the best ways for you to thin cards out of your hand with quick ball
Yeah,
being gone.
that's true.
Um, and then Path to the Peak being a 4 of, it's just kind of your strategy in pretty much every matchup. 4 path, so you go slam path plus play judge, and you have the 4 vacuums to hopefully get rid of it. So yeah, I played Mew the last couple of times I've played Pokemon. I played it at my local league, and then I played it at the League Cup. Um, I played pretty much just Pablo's list. I think I might have changed one card for my local league, but for my League Cup, I actually changed up quite a bit. I had a Spirit Gloves. Is it Spirit Gloves? I think is
Cleansing
that what it's called?
gloves.
Cleansing Gloves in the deck, which is I think pretty good. Tool card for anyone who doesn't know that makes it so your attacks do 30 more damage to your opponent's active psychic type Pokemon. So it still works as a choice belt against like the mirror match against opposing Mew VMAXs. But the main reason it's in here is so you can psychic leap Curlia's, Ralts's, and Comfeys,
Stabilize, Comfies.
Sableye, like so many things in the
It also
format.
helps
You
you
can
reach for the one hit KO on the Guard EX.
Yes, exactly. So it lets you do all of these things a lot easier. So cleansing gloves, I actually think is probably just good. I don't know if it's worth. So I cut a choice belt. I went to one choice belt, one gloves, which I think is okay. It might still be worth it to have two belts in the deck just for the more consistent damage on Pokemon V. But as there's EX is popping up in the format, choice belts value is going to go down a little bit. Even though I guess the only EX right now is pretty much going to be
Scardy,
the
right?
Gardevoir, but yeah, you could run into the Miraidon every once in a while. That would probably be the
True.
only other one. I put a third Forest Seal Stone in the deck to just up the consistency, and it also gives you another because the thing with Lost Vacuum, it is a way to get cards out of your hand as long as there's something for you to target with Lost Vacuum in play, right? So having another tool card to just kind of be able to target with that is nice. The tools are also kind of weird though because you can't Cramomatic them away anymore
Yeah.
because they're not item
I've had that
cards.
come up so much where I forget that when I play Mew online. I like go, all right, I'm gonna cram here, and then it takes away my tablet. I'm like, what? Why did it do that? Why
Yeah.
didn't it eat the choice belt or the Force Seal Stone?
It says item on the card. What the
Yeah, I
heck?
know.
And then
But
probably the most unique thing that I did, and shout outs to Xander Perot for this idea, is I played no Nest Ball. And I played 3 Feather Ball in the deck and 1 Hisuian Heavy Ball. Just use Battle VIP Pass and Ultra Ball to go get Genesects, and then having a heavy count of Feather Ball to still find my basic Mew Vs. Hisuian Heavy Ball is almost always going to find you a basic, it feels like, with 8 Pokemon in your deck. That's pretty much always going to be an out to something. Because Nest Ball, unlike Quick Ball, is not a card that you can just play, right? You can't just play
yeah,
it out of your hand if you have a bench of 5 Pokemon. And this is a deck where you always want a bench of 5 Pokemon pretty much. So that was something that I was like super when Xander like suggested that to me, I was like, dude, that there's just no way. Like Nest Ball's too good. And we talked about it a little bit more and I kind of came around. I was like, okay, I can see it. I can see it. I tried it out and honestly, like, I mean, I did not feel like obviously it's a small sample size of a 6-round league cup with 2 games in top cut. Or 2 matches in top cut, but I never felt like consistency was an issue for the deck at all.
yeah. I could see the feather ball being a little bit better because I definitely have those hands in the middle of the game where you just like the nest balls are stuck. There's so much more stuff that gets stuck in your hand with this kind of build of Mew with this many vacuums, like I said, in the paths and stuff like that. Like there's a lot of stuff that gets stuck in your hand. And the feather balls you can always play, and it's more
Right.
outs of Mew VMAX too, right? So it's like you only need so much consistency to set up turn one, but you also want to be able to attack turn two. So it's like more outs to your Mews as well. But yeah, the deck definitely misses Quick Ball for sure. It might miss Quick Ball the most out of like any deck. Mew
I
VMAX
could see
might.
that.
A lot of decks feel like they don't care that Quick Ball's gone. They would play it if they had it, but I guess Lugia misses it probably a little bit. More ways to discard Archeops would be nice, but yeah, Mew VMAX definitely misses the quick balls. But yeah, I could see that being just more feather balls could be the move for sure. Definitely see it.
So we've seen Fusion Mew popping up a little bit in online events here and there. Do you think there's merit to giving that a go for Portland ever, or is kind of just the more consistent build the way to lean into?
Um, Probably. Was there any fusion Mew that made day two at EUIC? Now I'm kind of curious.
I'll look real quick. I don't remember off the top of my head. I would say probably. Nope,
I'm
there
trying
was
to look
not.
as well. Were they lumped in with? No, there was at least.
No, they weren't
Uh,
lumped in.
yeah, they are. I'm looking at the card breakdown. There's fusion energy in. There's
Oh,
1.26. There's 1.26 fusion energy in 19 deck lists. So that's
someone had it.
yeah. So at least one per. How many is that though? That's more than one,
I'm
I
gonna
think.
find it. Yeah, that is more than one. It was
Yeah, it's a lot
one,
more than
two,
one.
three, four, five, 6 players with Fusion
Okay.
Mew. The
Okay.
best
So there's
finishing one
six.
though was 75th, so there was not even a
That's
top
not.
64.
Yeah, I don't think I was talking about. I mean, I don't think anything has changed for Fusion Mew. Like, I don't think your guarding matchup might be a little bit better because you're taking KOs faster, but then you don't have like the constant disruption of Judges and Roxanne's. Your Lost Box
This player
matchup
did
definitely
play
suffers.
this player had Disruption and Fusion Mew together, which we don't see too often. It's 2 Judge, 1 Roxanne, 2
They
Path.
had everything.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, this is it. This is the kitchen sink right here. Yeah, I don't feel like Fusion Muse because your Lost Box matchup is worse for sure because you're less based around Judge and Path. So your Lost Box matchup suffers. Your control in the mirror match suffers as well. Less disruption, less path. And then I don't think you're getting too much of a gain in the Guardian matchup potentially either. So yeah, I feel like Fusion Mew's kind of on its way out for right now, but might come back around, especially if like Lost Box leaves the form. I think that'd be like the big thing to change things around for it.
And speaking of Lost Box, that's next up on the list for us to talk about. Of course, Pedro made top 4 with his Sableye Charizard version of the deck. There was a few top 16s from the Mirage Gate focused builds. Actually, was it just one? Yeah, it was just Nick Moffat in 16th. Oh no, sorry, Tyler Matthews at 15th as well. So,
Yeah.
but I mean, Lost Box was toted going into EUIC as like this is the deck, right? I mean, this is the best deck in the whole format, and it kind of. I mean, is it fair to say that it underperformed at EUIC?
I think one not being in top 8 definitely qualifies it as underperforming. Like the
Yeah.
turbo build, the Mirage Gate build, whatever you want to call it, definitely feels like it underperformed a little bit. I was actually just noticing how many US flags were in the top half of that right there. I was just like
America showed out, baby.
and US was the second biggest. I mentioned this. I was like, I think US will probably be the second biggest country at UIC, and it was
Yeah, behind
by
Great Britain.
yeah, by a decent amount too. Like it was ahead of third by it was almost double, I think. I don't remember, but it was quite a bit. But yeah, Lost Box obviously still really good. I like Sable's art a lot still. I don't think I would. I don't want to play I wouldn't want to play a Mirage Gate build, but I've been experimenting with some other builds. Like I tried out a build the other day with just like 2 Snorlax as the only real Mirage Gate attacker, just like being as straightforward as possible, basically. And that felt pretty good to be honest. So there's a lot of different ways to play the Mirage Gate stuff. Not as much ways to play the Sable's Art stuff. I think the biggest thing to decide with Sable's Art is like, do you play the Maul Wild package or not? But I think both decks are really strong right now. Like I think they're both like I said, Turbo Lost Box, like the straight up Turbo feels like it is like a step above the other Lost Box decks, just overall for matchup spread, not necessarily in the mirror match. But then under that, there's a bunch of different ways to play the Mirage Gate builds. We've been seeing like Nick Moffat with the Kyogre, got top 16. We've been seeing a bunch of other Kyogre builds popping up bunch of different ways to play the Mirage Gate stuff. And then Sable's Art itself, yeah, like I said, the only thing really to decide with Sable's Art, I think, is cross switchers or no cross switchers, and then my wild Pidgeotto package or not.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you play Sable's Art as well, I mean, is Drapion going in there?
Yeah, I think I'd probably play the Drapion this time around. Mew will probably be 10% of the meta as always.
Yeah.
Didn't go anywhere. Yeah, I was not respecting it at all for EUIC, but it showed up. Definitely showed up.
Yeah, I mean, so it seems like you're kind of leaning into the Sablezard, liking that a little bit more. But when it comes to the Mirage Gate builds, there's kind of a couple things out there. Obviously, you want OCIC with a Sky Seal Stone package. It seems like Sky Seal Stone has kind of fallen pretty far down the ranks of Lost Box decks right now. If you're, it seems like it's either Sableye Charizard or like
Worst.
the Mirage Gate, like turbo builds with the 4 Seal Stones, Dragonite, Raikou, all that stuff.
We're starting to see like Kyogre builds that have like no V
Yeah,
Pokemon
that's
in them now
true.
as well. So I guess like the other, and I think they're all good. I think they're all good. The biggest thing to kind of like separate them is like the mirror matches are all pretty similar. I think Sable's Art has the most room to tech for mirror, but you don't have the Greninja, so that's kind of like the drawback. Um, but then they're all pretty similar, right? Like it's like really like where what is your strength in your other matchups that you would play this deck over a different deck, right?
Yeah.
So not playing V Pokemon is nice, but then you don't have Forest Seal Stone to be more consistent. Because I definitely think that is like the double Forest Seal Stone build. I feel like just is the most consistent build. Like I feel like I make the biggest plays happen most consistently with that build. And also there's a potential of turn one Mirage Gate as well going second, right? Turn one Greninja, turn one Dragonite, like all super powerful things that you can do that none of the other builds can really pull off if they go second. They kind of have to settle for Cram or even whiffing Cram, and that kind of stinks.
So Nick Moffat had a pretty interesting build. He got top 16 with, and we haven't really talked about this yet in our episodes since EUIC, but I mean, it's definitely different from what we've seen from Lost Box in the past. It's a Kyogre deck, but he's got the Galarian Moltres in here. He's also got Snorlax in here. What were your kind of takes on this build? Do you like it?
I did try it out a bit. Felt a little wonky. It's actually what inspired me to try the build with just Snorlax. And because I was trying out Nick's build and I was just winning games with just Sableye, Cram, and Snorlax. And I was like, what if we were just more consistent and I had another Snorlax in here? And then I
Sure.
made the double Snorlax build. And that build has felt really good. Um Kyogre is still pretty powerful. The Moltres is like a little gimmicky. It's a little bit awkward. There's no way to search it into hand, which I feel like is like if I could do that, the deck would feel way more powerful. I mean, you can get it on the bench.
I think it's just Clara, right?
Yeah, so you have to like, get it on the bench, have it get KO'd, and then you
Oh
can
yeah,
like you have
there's
to
no
like
way to discard it.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's what I'm saying. You can't
No,
get it
no,
in the
no. Here's your way.
hand
You
until you
Pokestop
draw
it.
it.
Pokestop it.
Yeah, you can Pokestop it. Yeah, which is like probably what Moffat did a little bit. But yeah, the Pokestops are They feel a little risky. There's no pow pad in like the decks. I don't know. This build felt okay. I tried it out a little bit. A lot of stuff going on. Little gimmicky. I feel like Kyogre in general right now is very susceptible to judge because just getting your hand reset over and over, it makes it really hard to get to the deck out point. But there's not that much judge in the format, to be honest. The only decks that really play judge are
Arceus
well, actually
and
there's quite a
Mew.
well, Lugia as well. Actually, no, there's quite a bit of judge in the format. Never
Yeah,
mind, I take it
Guardy
back.
also plays it, but it's just a one of, right?
Yeah, so Guardy like is judging you sometimes. So yeah, your Guardy matchup is already like, solid because you're a Lost Zone deck. You plays a lot of judge, but like you can go pretty. You can with this kind of build, you have a couple different routes you can take. You can either go the Moltres route and just like KO2 Mew V maxes, or have that become part of your plan, or just like get to Kyogre eventually and you just kind of win. So I feel like
Hmm.
because you need so little to beat Mew with this kind of build that even if they're judging you all the turn, you just keep turboing through your deck. You'll get the Kyogre combo eventually. Is kind of the game plan. But yeah, I felt okay. I think I'd like to try a little build that's like a little bit more straightforward with Kyogre. Um, give that a give that a shot first, or give that a shot first before I go back to what Moffat's. Also, Moffat like the interesting thing about Moffat's list is there was no Battle VIP pass. It was just Fall Crystal, Level Ball,
Yeah.
Nest Balls. So that was interesting. And after playing with it as well, it definitely felt worse than having Battle VIP passes. So I'm not sure I like the no Battle VIP pass shenanigans going on. But also, I hate Battle VIP pass, so I'm kind of I'm torn here.
All my homies hate Battle VIP Pass.
It's literally the best worst card in the format. I think it's like pretty unfortunate that it exists, but once it goes, I think the format will get quite a bit better. So I'm excited for that.
Well, it's gonna be around a while, so.
Yeah, more rotations.
No, I think it actually does leave with the next rotation because it's Infusion Strike, so it's the same set as Mew,
Okay,
something
hopefully.
like that. We'll see. We'll see.
Let me know.
That's a whiles away, regardless. Next deck to talk about, though, is one that I actually think is going to be pretty heavily played in Portland, and that is Gudra. So, Gudra kind of picked up a little bit of steam heading into EUIC. Nobody was really talking about it in the couple of weeks leading up to it, but then, like, it felt like that week of it kind of really got
Yeah,
on a lot of people's radar. And ended up having a pretty good showing. It had the best conversion rate from day one to day two of any deck at EUIC.
it was
And
cooking.
then Aiden Koos was able to get into top 8 with his build with the double Drapion in it. So Gudra V-Star. What do you think? You think it's going to be pretty prevalent in Portland?
I think it's pretty solid. Yeah, I think Guja's pretty good. I gave it like a pretty. I did like a tier list recently. I gave it like tier 3, I think, but I think it is probably a tier 2 deck after I played with it a little bit more. It's solid. It just does beat a lot of things. You got a little bit of room for some tech cards, like we saw. The ninth place Gudra. I forget who it was, but they got ninth with Gudra. They played like an Articuno in there.
Yeah.
So you got some cool stuff going on in the builds. There's like I said, there's a little bit of room for some techs. Yeah, just like it fits well into the meta right now. You hold up fine against like Lost Box. Your Guardian matchup, even though it seems like it might be terrible, it's actually just like not bad. Yeah, your Guardian matchup is actually okay. So I think it just fits pretty solidly in the meta right now against most of the top decks and keep up for sure. Your Lugia matchup is probably gonna get a little bit tougher because people are going to like the single strike Dura route, but
Hmm.
I think there's gonna be less Lugia overall to have to worry about. So I think it'll be okay.
Yeah, I could see Gudra like, yeah, I like I said, I think Gudra's going to be probably like, I could see it second or third most popular for sure.
Maybe third. I don't know about second.
We'll
Get
see.
higher than
We'll
Lost
see.
Box, Mew, and Lugia.
I don't know, man.
That's
We'll
tough.
see. Speaking of Lugia, that's next up on our list to discuss. We both kind of talked about how it feels like it's on a little bit of a downswing. I guess maybe the
Definitely.
question going in is this, like, how heavy do we lean into the Duraludon, right? Do we play the Impact Energies? Do we play the Duraludon? Or are we going back to kind of the lists that were more popular previous to EUIC?
I think you play the Duraludon or the single strike Urshifu because it gives you an engine mirror, and if they have it and you don't, you're at a disadvantage. And we saw the two lists that made top 8 both had Duraludon, right? I think it was a
Yeah,
little bit more of a surprise factor that helped both of them get to top 8. But yeah, with Gudra being such a popular deck, you need one of them to answer the Gudra. Otherwise, Gudra's tough without that. T-Tar can only go so far with the V-Guard energy. So yeah, I think everyone's gonna have one of those two. And like if all the Lugia, if the Duraludon's popular, then you want to be playing single strike Urshifu. But if Duraludon's not popular, you want to be playing Duraludon in your Lugia because I feel like Duraludon is the more powerful of the two options. Duraludon versus single strike Urshifu. Um, Urshifu is more of an answer to the meta, whereas like Duraludon is just like kind of neutrally good, right?
sure.
So I would say you want to be playing Duraludon, but if Duraludon's popular enough, you kind of have to play the single strike Urshifu to be able to have a good response to Duraludon. I think
Yeah, I could
Lugia in
see
general, on a downswing for sure. I'm not a big fan of it. The deck feels super bad to play. It just does not feel good to play. I don't think it's a bad deck, but super unenjoyable to play. I think, yeah, it's not as good as everyone thought, especially now that the cat's out of the bag with the Duraludon stuff and everyone kind of knows about that. Like, it's something that people are more prepared against, know how to deal with. So yeah, the deck is just not enjoyable to play. So
something that might have scared people off of Lugia for EUIC, would have been kind of the hype built up around Mawile. Definitely seems like something that a lot of people were playing heading into EUIC. I mean, you yourself played Mawile at
yeah.
EUIC. Do you think that Lugia should be worried about that? Do you keep the Thornton in the deck or the Penny or anything like that?
I mean, it's pretty much established now that the only deck that's not always, but usually is playing Mawile. Like, I think almost every Sablezard list that I've seen has the
Yeah.
Mawile in it. So almost everyone has the Mawile in there. But it's a pretty small percentage of the deck, right? Like, Sablezard is like what, a 5% meta deck, maybe can get up to 7. So it's pretty low meta percentage. Not all of them play the Mawile. I've been testing out builds without Mawile most recently, because like I feel like most people have the answers. But I feel like Thornton is already such a strong card in like this build we're looking at here. This is one of the top 8 lists, right?
Hmm.
Thornton is already such a strong card in the deck. Like, I feel like you probably just want to play the Thornton, and then it also is just like naturally an out of any Mawile shenanigans as well. Like, I feel like it just makes sense.
Yeah, I think the Thornton is pretty solid. I mean, it becomes your. I do think I would still probably put two Tyranitar V in the
Nah,
deck. It's just like the best attacker in the deck in
we have to.
almost
We have
every
Thorin.
matchup.
Thorin is the second one. Luminion for Thorin. The
Yeah, bro,
Luminion,
but you
you
need the
Thorin the
one. You
Luminion
need the
away.
one. What if he's not there, Azul? We need
He's never
him.
prized. We have Dura.
Bro, you did not just say that. He's
He's
never
sometimes
prized.
prized. But yeah, no, I think I like the Thornton just naturally kind of feels like it works really well in the deck. So I think like just keeping the Thornton, you might as well play the Thornton. But yeah, some people have Penny. There's people with Escape Rope as well, especially if you go like the more straightforward aggressive build. I feel like the Escape Rope is probably your best option there. Like, if you're playing the No Drought on No Single Strike Urshifu, which I think you should be playing one of them. You should go into that reasoning onto why you're playing one over the other, or which one you should be playing. But then the Escape Rope I feel like is better in the more straightforward build. But then and the Penny's interesting as well because the Penny is also like a little bit of a liability limiter, right? Like, you
Yeah,
got that
get your
Luminion on your
Lumineon out of
bench.
play,
I
right?
feel like Collapse Stadium is so powerful in the Lugia deck. Like, most
I
people
mean,
should be already
Thornton does
playing
that
that.
as
But
well. Thornton also gets
yeah,
your Lumineon out of play.
that is true. But you do have to put something back, I guess. It's a little bit more demanding of a card to set up. But yeah, I think, yeah, most people would probably be playing one of them. I don't think it's essential. Um, but the Thornton just, like, yeah, works so well in the current builds that are kind of going to be the top build. So we'll probably see it. Probably see it in most.
And the last deck that made top 8 we haven't talked about yet is the Miraidon. So, we were both not super high on Miraidon going into EUIC, but Robert Kinram was able to make top 8 with it. We've talked about this list a little bit. It definitely seems really interesting with the 3 Cramomatic Super Turbo 15 Lightning Energies. Azul, do you think we'll see a showing
Nope.
from Miraidon in Portland?
No, the deck is Miraidon. I think it is potentially a powerful deck. However, I think it is bad in the meta. And then also I tried to play this list the other day on stream and I bricked 2 or 3 games in a row and then I just put it away. Like, literally, I opened Raikou one of the games. I was like, draw, energy, use Raikou's ability, energy. Okay, pass. Back to my turn, draw, energy, Raikou's ability, energy. Okay, concede. So,
Yeah.
no, I think Mardon is a little bit better than that as a deck. It's a super powerful, aggressive deck, but you just don't have any good matchups. You're unfavored against Guardy. You're unfavored against Mew, especially with lists like this with no Drapion. If you get Drapion in there, I think your Mew matchup is fine. You're unfavored against Lost Box. Gudra, you probably hang with. I don't know for sure, but I think you're unfavored against too many of the top decks. Like, why would you ever play a deck like this? This isn't like a beat stick format where you're just like two a KO two prize or one a KO two prize or one a KO two prize or one a KO two prize, right? It's not that kind of meta right now. I don't think there's space for Miraidon, and I think it's a pretty bad play overall. I mean, I know they got top 8. I think even at UIC it was a pretty bad play, and yeah, I don't think it's going to change for Portland.
So I did want to talk about Miraidon a little bit because that's actually what I lost to in top 4 of my cup, but it was a super unique build. So it was not playing any Regieleki VMAX or Regieleki V. So shout outs
This might
to
be it.
Guy Bennett, well known in the Carolinas region for playing really spicy decks, right? He's like the guy that kind of always shows up with unique things. And he's been playing Pokemon for a long, long time. He's been around for a long while.
Guy is
Um,
the guy.
Guy is the guy. So his deck was just turbo lightning box, right? It was just Miraidon, Raikou. He had Radiant Greninja in there and Zapdos as well to like boost the damage, the Zapdos from Pokemon Go. Um And yeah, I mean, I played him in top 4. He chose to go second every single game, and the strategy of his deck was to just hit generator and take 2 prizes on turn 1 going second. That's what he tried to do against every single deck he played against. He took it. I mean, he was 4-0 at the cup, right? Double ID'd into 402 into cut. And he played 18 lightning energy in his deck, by the way.
Not
18. So
whiffing.
he I will say in one of our games in top 4, he did whiff a generator
Oh,
completely. Did not
no.
hit a single energy. And it was like an early game one too. So it was like kind of it was probably not the lowest odds whiff, right? Because he plays
Yeah.
so many energies. So I got a little lucky there, but um yeah, I
18.
did
I was all the way
ultimately
up
lose
to
that set.
16 in my build before pre-EUIC. I was up to 16. I did not get to 18 though, but I still had Reggie's in there, so there's a lot of junk. Was it like trekking shoes and like everything just like as fast
No,
as
no.
possible?
Switch
No?
carts. Switch carts,
Oh,
beach
switch
court,
card.
escape rope. So he was using fleet-footed a lot.
Did you set up 2 Raikus and you fleet-footed twice?
Yeah.
Ooh, let's go. It's
He
+2.
played 3
Interesting.
Raikou as well, and then he also played Drapion for Mew, and he also played Raichu V to close out the game.
The
So,
big, yeah, big
yeah,
hits.
big knockout. So if he had 5 energy in play plus Zapdos, he could do 310 to a Mew V Max to just
EXP
one hit KO
shares?
it. No EXP shares.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, interesting. I mean, yeah, maybe that is the way. That sounds like does not have a good Lost Box matchup, but yeah, maybe
Yeah.
just
He did beat
no.
Sableye Charizard in the finals, so
That sounds like a terror. That sounds like the worst of the matchups too, because you
yep.
don't even have a any like 2 prize liabilities. As long as you set up, you attack with Cram and Sableye every turn. I feel like the game just ends, and they have Charizard to close out. But they got there.
He might
Yeah.
have had 4 switch carts in the deck, and he also had 2 Lost City, so that's something else as well. He had
Oh,
double
okay,
Lost City.
okay.
So
Yeah,
he
that
was
makes things
getting rid
different.
of the
Yeah.
attackers, yeah.
Getting rid of the attackers plus your healing. Okay, I see it now. I can now I'm like visualize that could work for sure. Yeah, you're healing with the switch carts. What does Crystal Cave heal? It doesn't heal lightning Pokemon, does it? It's
No, it
dragon
heals
and
metal
metal.
metal and dragon, yep.
Need rough seas
So
back.
he had double beach court, double Lost City in his deck.
I mean, maybe everyone's just been playing Miraidon wrong. Maybe I mean, maybe right. Like that could be the way. Like if that is how you can cheese out the wins against Lost Box, like if that is enough to beat Lost Box, then you can definitely beat the other 2 prize matchups. Guardy still sounds tough at that point. Like I don't think your Guardy matchup gets much better for what you got on board. But maybe not. Maybe it works. That's actually a really interesting build for sure.
Yeah, so I
Everyone's
mean,
been playing
obviously,
Miraidon
like
wrong.
someone just played it at a League Cup. I'm not expecting it to make waves in Portland, right?
Yeah,
But I'm just saying, like, I think there's still some unexplored territory potentially with Miraidon. A deck
definitely.
that I really want to talk about that I think actually is super underexplored right now is the Urshifu Inteleon deck. So, I mean, I think this deck is obviously very, very powerful. Anything that can steal extra turns, right, through the use of Metacham V is going to be really good. You know, using Metacham into using Gmax Rapid Flow the next turn can just win you the game really, really fast. I think that probably the main reason we just haven't seen more from this deck yet is that um it's hard to play. It's definitely
It's hard to
really
play.
difficult to play, and, it got top 16, which is a super solid finish at an international championships with over 1,500 people at it, but it still just feels like it's kind of flown under the radar. What do you think of this deck, Azul?
Yeah, it's got a lot of options. There's a lot of things you can do. I just don't know how good it is. It's really hard to tell how good a deck like that actually is. You have to put a lot of time into it. I haven't put that much time into it. I tried like a straight Inteleon build, which felt kind of cool. Of course, that does suffer in the. I didn't play any like Drapion, so I was suffering in the Mew matchup. I actually did beat a Mew with it, but I think you can keep up with like Lost Box. Guardy seems fine. Even Gudra seems like it's probably fine because you can kind of loop. Actually, Gudra seems like it might be tough. Like even if you do loop some Comfies with Metacham, you're still not doing very much damage to the Gudra. That one
Well,
seems
so
like it's
you do
tough.
if you steal a turn with Metacham, you do hit the Gudra hard next turn. Rolling Iron doesn't. It's only
Yeah,
yeah. So you'd still,
and then they
but you only
heal.
do 140 to it. So
Yeah, and then they heal, and they reduce the damage they take by 80 again.
yeah,
That build specifically, there's like escape ropes in there too, like the build that you get what
Tobias.
11th place. So yeah, I think it is like a solid deck, but it's definitely not one of those decks that can kind of handle most matchups, right? Like that's why I feel like Lost Box is so good because does Lost Box even have like a bad matchup? I feel like the answer is like no, right? For the most part, like
Ah.
unless someone's like heavily you lose to people, you're struggling against people who are heavily teched, but and
Oh
I'd say
yeah.
like the same thing for like Mew as well, right? Like Mew as well is like you don't have even a decks with double Drapion. You have your Path, your Judge, your Roxanne, like you can keep up, and the matches
Yeah.
aren't terrible. But decks like this, I think, have bad matchups. But I do think like you have good matchups as well. But everyone has good matchups. But you have some bad matchups, and like The top decks in the format obviously don't have. So I don't think it's a top deck, but I think it is. It definitely is something to not underestimate.
I know Grant played against this deck in round 1 of EUIC, and he said it was like an unwinnable matchup for Sableye Charizard, is how he described it.
Yeah, it sounds miserable. I don't think you're
So
winning that one.
he wasn't pumped coming off of round 1 in London. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I think this deck has a lot of potential. I would love to see someone pick it up and do well with it for sure. Definitely tough to play.
I
Another
think
deck,
it has the potential for sure. Like if it made top 8, would not be surprised.
no, not at all. Something else to talk about is Sanders' deck from EUIC. So Sander didn't have the best showing. Wait, where is his name on here? He got top 64, I'm pretty sure. Um, but I mean, that's still solid. And of course, he's playing a control archetype. Where is his name? Why can I not find it on here? But he had a lot of stuff going on in here. It
31st.
was really focused around the penny. We've talked about it on the podcast already before, using penny to loop Ursaluna V so it never gets KO'd, looping the Mimikyu Vs at some point with its dummy doll ability. Do you think now that this is kind of a known quantity, right? Now that this is out there and people know that this is a deck, do you expect to see some of this popping up in Portland?
Yeah, there'll definitely be more of some kind of takes on control, so you have a little bit better idea of what the meta looks like and what you probably have to beat and what you can probably like take a loss to. So you can like thin down a little bit of this deck or like other kind of control builds that exist out there. I don't think it's like a ridiculously powerful deck. It's not like I feel like the most powerful control type deck we've seen in a while was the Mewtwo V Union deck from
In AIC,
AIC
yeah.
that Sander played.
And then Piper
Yeah,
won Toronto with
yeah, but we haven't seen
Mewtwo V
anything like that in a
Union.
little while. This is definitely not the next one in line for that kind of situation. But I think it's solid. You have some like pretty good win conditions. Got a lot of decks. The matchup that I played it a little bit the other day on stream. The matchup I struggled against the most was Guardy because they have the Penny. Your win condition is basically Maul Wild trap something, but you basically can't trap anything because everyone has Penny or like an escape rope or something. So it just becomes really difficult. So that's what I struggled with the most. And
Yeah.
Guardy's gonna be pretty popular, that's for sure.
Yeah, and Guardy, not a deck that I think it feels good to take an L2, but maybe you can I mean maybe you don't have to worry about maybe you can get rid of the Mawile strat because I think that was also your strategy against Lugia, right? But you don't need to worry about that now if Lugia is not as popular. Maybe you can find a way to beat Gardevoir in a different way. Who knows?
If it exists, that'd be pretty good. The deck would become a lot better if that was like, yeah, if you had a consistent route there, because that's like feels like the biggest struggle to me so far.
Yeah, that
Um,
might just take more deck space. And then I think the last thing to mention, did not have the best showing at EUIC, one in the top 32, and that is Giratina. So there's a couple Tina variants. There's, of course, Arceus Giratina, but the most popular one is going to be the Lost Zone Giratina. It was one of the more popular decks
somehow.
day one of EUIC, but then it really dropped off into day two. Did not have a good conversion rate. Where do you think it stands for meta share going into Portland?
I wonder who could have predicted that. Probably pretty low. I don't think it'll be in the top 6. It won't be on the graph or the graphic. Um, for the meta breakdown. I think Lost on Tina still is just I think it literally Lost on Tina is literally a bad deck. Like I think the deck is just actually bad. It's just like trying to like it's like you could take Arceus and put it with I don't know, like what is a bad VMAX? You could play Arceus with any bad cards and it would be like you could call it Arc. Give me a bad VMAX. What's a bad Hatterene?
Aggron.
You could play Arc Hatterene VMAX and it would be a deck would be a bad deck. And I feel like that's what Lost Zone Tina is. It is a deck, but it is also just a bad deck. And for some reason,
Jeez.
there's enough people who play it and consider it to be good enough to like keep it in like the what's it called of like standard meta decks. Like it's still like it's listed in every like everyone talks about it as like if it's still a standard meta deck. But I just don't think it should be. I don't think it should be qualified as a deck.
Dude,
It's
I'm
literally
gonna
just
laugh
mashing
so
too much
hard.
together.
Tina wins Portland. Here it
I wouldn't
comes.
change my mind on. I wouldn't change my mind on Tina. Tina could win. I wouldn't change my mind. I think the deck is terrible. I think it's literally off. Although Arc Tina, I actually think is actually a solid deck. But I think there's a couple decks. I mean, the one specifically is Mew. I think Mew literally just does what Arc Tina does, but better. Judge, Path, one hit KO is the game plan. I think if you're playing Arctina, you should just be playing Mew. Like even though Drapion exists, I don't think that's a good enough reason to not play. Just play Mew over Arctina. But if you are gonna play Arctina, at least you're not playing Lost Tina.
Yeah.
I think Arceus like a pretty solid deck overall. I just think it's like there's no reason to just not be playing Mew if you're playing Arctina because your win conditions are so similar, and it's overall just a less powerful deck than Mew. So
All right. Well, let's do a couple of predictions here to close out the show. Most played deck for Portland in day one. What do you think, Azul?
probably has to go to the Lost Box still. I feel like that is gonna be what it is. Lost Box. I was gonna maybe say Guardy. It was Lugia at EUIC, right? Or was no, it was
No, it was
Lost
Lost
Box.
Box.
But day two it was Lugia, right? I think Lugia took
Yes.
over in day two.
Yes.
Yeah. Um, so I'm gonna give it to Lost Box for day one. I think it's probably gonna be. I think it's a pretty safe bet. Guardy would be close. I think Guardy's probably gonna be second.
Yeah, and Guardy is what I'm gonna predict here. I think Guardy is gonna uptick in play. I mean, I think people just naturally like to play the new deck, something that's unique, something that's different. The majority of people playing in Portland will not have been people who were at EUIC, so it's going to be people getting their first chance at this new format and wanting to try the new best deck, being that Gardevoir. Now that there's a good list for them to kind of base their play testing off of, that's what we can go with. Another question alongside this: what's going to be the highest played deck in day two? So, what do you think is going to have like the best conversion rate? I guess as well. Maybe those are like slightly different questions, right? But
Yeah, basically, yeah. I mean, not quite the same thing because if we just pick Lost Box, it probably won't have that good of a conversion rate, but it'll. I'm gonna go with Mew because I think Mew will probably be in the top three. My second place would probably be my other one would be to
so
predict
Mew
would
best
be
conversion
Lugia,
rate or
but
most played day two? I guess
most played
conversion
day
rate.
two.
Oh, most played.
Well,
So you think Mew's going to go up day one to day
wait, are
two?
we doing best conversion rate or most played? I was gonna say it'd be like the number one deck in day two. That's it.
That's kind of surprising that you think.
I think it'll be close. I think
Yeah,
it'll be close. It's a little bit of a bold prediction. I'm not like if it doesn't happen, I'm not gonna be shocked. But
yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna go with Mew. I'm gonna go with Mew on this one.
Yeah, interesting. I could definitely see it. I think it's gonna be Guardy. Day one, day two, double Guardy. Doubling down. Now that is unless they I don't know what they're gonna do with the graphic yet. I wonder if they'll split Guardy into like regular Guardy and then Mewtwo Guardy. I think if they do that, then it doesn't have a chance either way. I kind of think they should keep them both the same, but I'm not sure what they're gonna do just yet. Next prediction for us, highest placing Miraidon. So neither of us seems to really like the deck that much. It obviously got top 8 at EUIC, so it's going to give some people some hope. Someone's going to roll up with the list and maybe someone will flip enough Chromatic heads to find themselves having a deep run in the tournament. What do you think is the highest placing Miraidon?
Uh, I almost want to. I'm gonna give it a top 64. It'll definitely make day two. There'll be some in day two. I'm gonna give it a. That's a maybe a little bit rough. That might be a little bit rough, but yeah, I'm gonna go top 64 for Maridon.
Yeah, I
It'll
mean,
probably be at least in top 32, but I'm gonna go with top
I
64.
don't think it's unreasonable to give it the top 64, but I'm going to go with top 32. I think that's more likely where we're going to see it.
Yeah,
And then final
and then
prediction for us is Control going to make top 8. Now that people know about Sanders' deck, is someone going to take that strategy, maybe innovate a little bit, and find themselves into a top 8? What do you think, Azul?
it doesn't seem like I said like the Sander deck from, and I'm sure there's other people with other control decks out there. It doesn't seem that powerful. Um, there's plenty of time for people to innovate on it, try different stuff out, or already come up with, or already have their own control deck that they're bringing to Portland outside of Sanders' deck. Um, and I think no one's really worried about control factors right now, and I don't really think most people should be. Like, no one really cares about control, which is like
Yeah.
fine. Um, so I'm gonna go with will control make top 8? Man, it's kind of tough.
Nobody's really caring about Control, which is normally a good thing for Control.
But is it? I don't know if control's powerful enough to like.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm gonna go with no. I'm gonna go with no on the top 8.
Yeah,
I was
and
like,
I'm going to say the same thing, and I think for the
yeah.
same reasons as what you said as well. Like it seems like no one's caring about it, but maybe there's a reason no one's caring about it because it just isn't super strong right now.
To be honest, even when it is strong, I do think there needs to be like a placement with it for people to care, right?
Oh, for
Sander making
sure.
top 32, like if Sanders deck is more powerful than I think it is, and maybe if you like resimulate EUIC a couple times, Sander makes top 8 a couple times, um, then a lot more people would care, right? So like I think you need that placement for people to care before it like actually starts seeing some techs against it. But
If we resimulate EUIC, how many times do you make top 8?
Or
10
how many times do you have
times.
to how many times do you have to be
Simulate 10
simulated to?
times. Simulate 10 times.
Probably at least 3.
At least 3? Okay.
I think
Oh, see.
Sablezard was a pretty good play. I still like Sablezard a lot. Like, I thought it was a pretty good play for the well, maybe not. I could have to dodge a lot of Mew again. Maybe not. Mew was tough. If you give me a Drapion and we
Yeah.
resimulate it
If you let me change my deck, now
yeah, let me
knowing
change
what I
one card,
know.
1 card. Let me change 1 card. Yeah. Give me Drapion so I can, like, beat the Mews, if I hit any of them, we'll be good to go.
Well, I think that's going to do it for this week's podcast. Azul, thanks so much to everyone for listening. Azul, good luck to you up in Portland. Hopefully, you can bring home another top 8 finish at least. Yeah, thanks to all the listeners.
Alright.
As always, if you did enjoy the podcast, please be sure to leave us a rating on your preferred podcasting platform. Helps us out a bunch, lets us know you're enjoying the content, and it helps more people discover the show. You can also drop us a like, a comment, and subscribe over on the YouTube channel. And if you want to stay up to date with everything that's going on, the best place to do that is over on Twitter. You can follow myself at Chip Ritchie. Azul is at Azul_GG. You can also follow the podcast at Uncommon_Energy.
Yeah, appreciate the support as always. Good luck to anyone going to Portland or Sao Paulo this weekend at either of those regional championships. And then we'll catch y'all next Tuesday to recap the events of those. We'll see actually what does well. Will there be a control in top 8? Who knows? We'll find out. Catch you next week, 7 a.m. Peace.